Director discussion of remote meetings.
So really, this is just a matter of the Planning Commission adopting the resolution to reauthorize the hybrid meeting that we're going through. And once that's done, we don't have to make reference to the executive order anymore.
Okay. So, can I get a motion to continue that?
I'll motion to continue it.
Second.
All right. So, Tripp, roll call on that, please.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimous. So, do we have any modifications tonight?
We have no modifications tonight.
Okay, thank you. So now, open up for public comment. This is on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. So, is there anybody who wishes to speak? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Jim Moore and live in Bayside. As members of the County Planning Commission, you're regularly asked to decide complex applications without reliable data, relying instead on what's effectively public hearsay. We saw last week, there's light, there's noise. No, there isn't. If those are exceptional cases, well, it happens. But the existing county system seems to make such uncertainty and ambiguity the norm. And the result seems to me to be a dysfunctional cannabis permitting process. At the last meeting, Mr. Ford indicated that the county is developing some kind of aerial sensing capability for monitoring nighttime lights at grows. That's great, but it sounded like he was talking about a drone-based system. While this would have an important role in documenting suspects.
This is on our agenda tonight to speak about, and you'll have an opportunity then.
Oh, I didn't realize, I thought it wasn't,
No, we had it as a discussion.
I know it was discussed as, well, my bad.
We had it agendized for tonight. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
where you were going, but.
Oh, yeah, no, it's about, using senses and stuff.
You'll have your opportunity to speak on it,
Okay.
if you wish.
I was told that it had been pulled off of tonight's, and that's why I'm here. I'm sorry.
I don't believe so. We said no agenda modification, so it's on there.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak on any item that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay, we have one call in, so public 4882, please go ahead.
Hello, Ken Sawatsky. I appreciate Zoom. I'm calling you from Trinity County this evening, and this Zoom works for all of us. We didn't get input on the vote you just took. That's fine. So I gave it now. Basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about a project in Blue Lake, and it is a planning project, a major planning project, and I want to use it as an example. This particular planning project, unfortunately, in the opinion of the public, is driven by the fact that we are dealing with grants so much. So what motivates a city like Blue Lake to go ahead and do a really large project that is people really don't want, probably, and we will finally have a chance to address the project, I think, on Sunday. But the project was already put on the agenda for last Tuesday to be approved and funded. They didn't take the thing. They didn't adopt the project. They didn't do the lease yet. If it's kind of a kabuki dance where they want us to go ahead and rubber stamp it, we're probably not going to. And what motivates public entities such as a city to do a project? Well, a lot of it is, unfortunately, the scale of the project. A lot of them make like 20% to administer these projects, maybe even more. A lot of the engineering partner up with an engineer before the project starts, and they get 30%. So unfortunately, our tax dollars are being spent totally misappropriately. And the bigger the project, if they can add more to the project, like this particular one, then they get more money. And that's not what the taxpayers want. We want the most bang for our buck on a good project that is necessary, that satisfies the needs of the people, whereas the one in Blue Lake doesn't seem to. And so this is something that happens all throughout different cities, the county and everything else, unfortunately driven by grant. So whenever you see a project like this, always take it in mind that maybe this project is being done just to add that extra 20% to the coffers general fund of the municipality is doing it. So that's my comment for today, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this not agendized item.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on any item that's not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, and we will come back and have our first public hearing, and it is item number 1, Old Arcata Road Rehabilitation and Pedestrian Bikeway Improvements Coastal Development Permit in the Bayside area. We'll take a staff report, and then I'm told that following the staff report, we'll have a presentation by the City of Arcata. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. I have to recuse myself on this. I've talked to FPPC and our council here because of some possible financial interest in a property owner that is attached close by to this project. So I'm going to have to recuse myself on this particular item.
Okay. Well, give you a call afterward. Maybe go over to the AA and we'll call you.
Knock on some doors.
Yeah, I'll knock on some doors around here.
No, you don't have to do that. This is, he has a financial. Well, I've talked to people too. That's your call, if you want to. Okay. Okay. So with that, we'll take a staff report.
Thank you, Chair Bongio, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Cliff Johnson. I am representing the Humboldt County Planning Department on this. I believe I'm sharing my screen. Trip, are you seeing it at all? Okay, thank you. So this application is for a coastal development permit for a portion of the Old Arcata Road Rehabilitation and Pedestrian and Bikeway Improvement Project. The City of Arcata is undergoing this project with the goal of improving traffic safety for both motorized and non-motorized users of this corridor. Planning for this project began in 2016, and the city engaged in a robust public engagement process, which did include collaboration with Humboldt County. The image on this slide shows the entirety of the Old Arcata Road improvement project, nearly all of which is in the City of Arcata. On this slide here, you'll see the yellow portion, which is the portion that is within the Humboldt County jurisdiction and within the coastal zone. So this is the portion that is the subject of this coastal development permit tonight. Zooming into the intersection here of Jacobi Creek Road and Old Arcata Road, the dashed white and black line is the City of Arcata boundary with Humboldt County. There was historically some confusion about where the exact location of this boundary was, but this line here has been verified by both the City of Arcata and a licensed surveyor with the Humboldt County Public Works Department to represent the boundary based on the legal description. So that's the boundary between the two jurisdictions. Now this blue line is showing the coastal zone. And then the yellow here shows the portion that's within Humboldt County's jurisdiction and within the coastal zone. So this is the area that's subject to the coastal development permit that's in front of you tonight. This slide is showing the proposed improvements overlaid on the county's GIS. And the slide right here, zooming out, you can see both the city-county boundary and the coastal zone. And then right here in red, you'll see the portion of the improvements that are subject to this coastal development permit. This includes a little bit more than half of the landscape median in the roundabout and landscaping and sidewalks on both sides of the road. I will note that a recommended condition of approval is that the city install a crosswalk on the southern leg of this roundabout, unless the County Public Works Department determines that that would not be able to be done safely in accordance with proper engineering standards. This is just showing you a close-up view here. Again, roughly half of the landscape median, some landscaping, and new pedestrian sidewalks. So the City of Arcata is the lead agency under CEQA, and they have prepared an environmental impact report. The EIR included mitigation measures for aesthetics, biological resources, cultural and tribal resources, geology and soils, hazards and hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, and transportation. The conclusion of the EIR was that there was no significant and unavoidable impacts. And the final EIR was certified by the City of Arcata on February 16th, 2022. For the purposes of CEQA, Humboldt County is a responsible agency. That means that while not the lead agency, the county is still required or still responsible for approving part of the project. In this case, it would be the portion that is subject to this coastal development permit tonight, as well as an encroachment permit for portions on Jacobi Creek Road. As responsible agency, Humboldt County is required to review and consider the information contained in the EIR. So going back to the portion of the project that's within the county's, that's subject to this coastal development permit, it does take place entirely within the existing right-of-way, and county staff finds that the project would have no impact on any coastal resources. There are no sensitive natural resources, visual resources, agricultural resources, cultural or historic resources that are located within the county right-of-way in this area. That was also the conclusion of the EIR that the City of Arcata certified. The primary concern in this area probably has been historic resources. The environmental review prepared for this project identified 3 historical resources on this intersection, one of which is the older Jacobi Creek School, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. You can see that if you can read sideways there up on the north in the orange. The Bayside Community Hall and former Bayside Grange, which was listed in the California Register of Historic Places, and the Bayside Corners property, formerly known as Temperance Hall and currently occupied by the Mistwood School, which is not listed on either register, but for the purposes of CEQA was considered a historic resource. All of these resources are historically significant due to the architecture of the buildings, and there will be no alterations to these buildings as part of this project. All 3 of these historical resources are also outside of the coastal zone and outside of the scope of this permit application. The intersection, including the existing parking and the road right-of-way, was also evaluated for potential historic significance and found not to be significant. Specifically, the intersection was realigned in 1946 into its more modern configuration, and the parking lot was constructed after this 1946 realignment. The conclusion of the EIR is that neither the intersection nor the parking lot contributes to the historical significance of any of these properties. So staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission consider the environmental impacts in the certified EIR, make the findings to approve the coastal development permit, and approve the coastal development permit. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I would note that City of Arcata is also here.
All right. Any questions for Cliff before we have the City of Arcata's presentation? Seeing none, go ahead with the City of Arcata.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me right?
Yes. Welcome.
Hi. Good evening. I'm sharing my screen here. Are you able to see my slides? Okay, perfect. Good evening, commissioners, county staff members, and the members of the public. First of all, thank you for the opportunity today here to present our project. My name is Netra Khatri. I'm the city engineer for City of Arcata and been involved in the project since 2005. David Loya, Director of Community Development, is also here with me, who will be answering if there are questions related to environmental document. Our goal here is to give you a quick overview of the project and try to maybe address some of the questions that you may have seen. I will not take a lot of time, but just wanted to give you some background on the project before you make a decision on the project. So with that, here, I will just quickly go over project history and overview of the project. and address the comment that we have, you have received or we have received over the course of the project, mainly related to parking, drainage, and the roundabout design. And then if you have any questions on our environmental document, David is here to answer those questions. I'll try to answer some of those questions as well. And then if you have further questions on the next steps, we will be addressing that as well. So with that, on the project history, I'll tell you, this project has been in the books for a long time. I would say since 2010, that was the first time city attempted to do a project in that area. However, in 2010, city did not consult with the member of the public, so project was not well received, so we were not able to do the project in 2010. Again, in 2015, the project came to city via Transportation Safety Committee. Member of the residence school came to Transportation Safety Committee and commented regarding speeding and lack of sidewalk, bike lanes in that area. So with that in mind, Transportation Safety Committee and City Council made this project a priority project and set aside some funding to do the projects. So with that, in 2016, we did a design shared process where we did extensive public outreach, which included multiple public meetings, walk audits, some and pop-up demonstrations for the project. The key feedback we got during the design shared process was to maintain the rural characteristic of the area, improve the safety, and people did like to use the existing path that exists there just north of the school. Most of the desired improvements were related to traffic calming, needed some pedestrian walkways, and they wanted to make sure people not overtaking, so maybe put some yellow center line, have a safer crosswalk, pedestrian and safety at school crossing, improve signage, pavement marking, improve the intersection of Jacobi Creek intersection, and make it bike-friendly improvements in that area. Overall desire of the committee in that process was to, few of the individuals wanted to leave the road it as, but that was not the goal of the project at that time because we needed to make some improvements as we have known speeding issues in that area. Most of the people who came to the meeting and provided comments, they wanted to see some sort of improvements related to bike and ped again, reducing the speed and having a separate pathway, and then addressing the issues at the parking for the Jacobi Creek School. With that in mind and based on the design shared process, we developed project goals for the project. And then some of the goals are listed here, which included we need to reconstruct the old Arcata Road, improve the intersection, safety along the project corridor, including the intersection of Jacobi Creek and the old Arcata Road, decrease speed, provide traffic calming and improve traffic operations, extend pedestrian connectivity, create a gateway at the southern entrance of the Bayside Arcata, minimize potential environmental impact, use accepted and traffic engineering standards to select roadway and safety improvements. So those are these are just some of the goals, but there are more goals listed in our project environmental document. So Cliff gave a pretty good overview of the project, so I'll just maybe reiterate that. Project does include approximately 1 mile of road improvement between just south of Buttermilk Lane to just south of intersection of Jacobi Creek and Old Arcata Road. As you can see in the map here, there are 3 schools in the vicinity of the project, so connectivity is very critical here for bikeway and pedestrian. The project includes to improve and will not add, but improve and will include 2 10-foot travel lanes along the road alignment and 2 5-foot bike lane on either side. And there will be a existing separate walkway, which is on the north side of the Jacobi Creek School, which will be maintained and repaired. And then currently there is no sidewalk on the Old Arcata Road on the west side, south of Jacobi Creek School. So project will be adding a sidewalk, which will be connecting the intersection of Jacobi Creek and Old Arcata Road to the school. So first concern, you may have seen emails and as also addressed in our environmental document, parking was one of the issues that was brought to us since the beginning. So we have addressed that Currently, there is no formalized parking along Old Arcata Road alignment, but through the project, we are enhancing or formalizing parking along the road alignment. Some of the paved surface will be converted to a permeable pavers, so they will be delineated and people will be able to park in that area. Okay. And then the other parking concern that was brought to our attention was existing parking near the intersection of Old Arcata Road and Jacobi Creek. So we just did some analysis of how the parking is there. So based on the existing configuration of the road and how a vehicle could park based on the legal dimension of the vehicle and vehicle movement, we came up with currently there are 79 parking areas. There are definitely some of the people do park during the event in the community hall along the Jacobi Creek, but they were not counted because they are not legal parking stalls. So currently, without the project, there are existing 79 parking stalls in that area. After the project improvements with the roundabout, definitely there'll be some impact to the parking. So there will be reduction of parking by 9. So there will be total 70 parkings available. Again, there is an assumption that there will be some of the parking will be available in the school area. But parking was concerned, so to address that, and in communication with Public Works Department at the county, we edited the project to encompass certain portion of Jacobi Creek, where you can see where there's an existing ditch. So as a part of the project, that ditch will be converted to a storm drain system, and it'll be covered with the shoulder on it, so people will be able to park. So with that, the total parking post-project would be 80, so which is approximately same as existing conditions. Next concern that was brought to our attention through the project process was drainage. Currently, most of the water from the Old Arcata Road, it's a surface drainage. There are few storm drain structures within the city limits, but most of the water does sheet flow along the ditches along the Old Arcata Road, and that will continue to happen post-project as well. At the intersection of the Jacobi Creek and Old Arcata Road, currently there is no storm drain system in the city limit, but the county has some drainage structures along Jacobi Creek, and you can see the culvert here in front of the school here, if you're able to see my mouse. But currently the water still sheet flows from the Old Arcata Road, and the existing culvert system is a pretty old system, and they are not in great shape, which is, yeah. So post-project conditions for the drainage, as you can see, the project plans are to put some landscapes, bioswale. So most of the water will be going to the bioswale, but there will be some water that will be collected around the roundabout with the storm drain structure, and that will be connected to county's storm drain structure. We have done the preliminary analysis, and there is not an impact through the drainage of this project. And then lastly, the roundabout, we did get a lot of questions on the roundabout, why roundabout was chosen and what was the process. So definitely it was not chosen. It was selected through a process, through a design study process, which we did in 2016. And there were alternatives considered in the initial level, which included larger roundabout, a mini roundabout, a T intersection with a multi-way stop, a T intersection with a signal, unmodified T intersection with speed enforcement, and also we consider the historic Old Arcata Road configuration at the Jacobi Creek Road alignment. However, none of this considered alternative met the project goals that I listed early on, so hence they were rejected. There were other projects that were analyzed in detail, and I will just go over that. One of them is a roundabout, and other one is a T intersection improvement, which was again based on the public feedback we got. So this is the modified T intersection. You can see here, this is Old Arcata Road here. This is the Jacobi Creek Road project. This alternative does tries to mitigate some of the speeding issue by having some narrow travel lanes and adding a crosswalk and some islands at the center of the road. It does include some rapid flashing crosswalks here in front of the school and on Old Arcata Road. However, as you can see, the speeding is not controlled by this alternative because people are still free to drive on Old Arcata Road on east and north and southbounds. So hence this was rejected because this does not meet the project goal and people will continue to speed in that area. And this is the layout of the proposed roundabout, which mitigates speeding issues and addresses meets all of the project goals that I listed early on. So the proposed roundabout currently is 113 feet inscribed circle diameter. Here you can see the blue lines are the right-of-way lines on the city side and on the county side. All the project elements that are proposed are within the county or the city right-of-way. As Cliff mentioned, we've been working very closely with Public Works Department, and they are on board with the concept that we have presented, and will be continue to work with them as we move through the design. So here is the same line, the orange line is the city limit line here. And you can see some dimensions how the roundabout is in the vicinity of the structures in that area. So this is just a quick overview of our project that we are proposing, which some portion is in the county. And with that, I will stop my screen sharing and I will maybe allow David, if you want to add something on the environmental side of the project. If not, we will take some questions from the commissioners and answer the questions if you have.
Thank you, Director Khatri. I do not have anything to add at this point, but we'd be happy to answer any questions that your staff would like to rely on my knowledge of the EIR to support.
Okay. Noah, I see you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Khatri, for that presentation. That was informative. As you're well aware, many of the comments that were opposed to this project in reviewing the City of Arcata's process specifically cited Alternative 2 as their preferred alternative. I know you did speak about that, but I just wanted to get really clear from you, was the primary reason why the City of Arcata found Alternative 2 to be inadequate to the project goals, was it because given Alternative 2, there was no way to slow the traffic sufficiently? There was no traffic calming for the traffic north and south on Old Arcata Road. Is that what I heard you say? And if you could elaborate on that a little bit more about what the drawbacks of Alternative 2 were, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. As you said, yes, the Alternative 2, which I shared, and I can more than happy to share that again, it attempts to improve some speeding. However, it does not slows people down on Old Arcata Road. As you may or may not have heard in last 2 months, we have seen some vehicles driving fast and ending up in private property. So definitely, just adding islands will not reduce the speed and will not meet the project goals. So hence, that alternative was rejected. And putting a roundabout with a physical at the center and providing adequate lanes, that does mitigate the speeding, which was the most critical one that we had to address. So roundabout resolves that.
Melanie, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I have a question about the alternatives as well. I was wondering if you considered an alternative that looked at a pair of two one-way streets with a separation in the middle. It's often used as a solution where, for example, you might be near a school and the roundabout's effects, most of which are positive, but there is an association with increased danger for the blind or for cyclists. These pair of two one-ways with a traffic calming measure such as speed bumps or something on the road to slow the traffic down. That I was wondering if you had looked into that as one of the more serious alternatives. Thank you.
If I could just interject real quick, Director Khatri, just before you answer that, the specific questions around the the details of our analysis around alternative 2. I did want to interject, and I would defer to your staff on this point, but we are at this time not relitigating the EIR. We're not reviewing the EIR. The alternative analysis in the EIR resolved on a specific project description, and so I believe what the Planning Commission is reviewing tonight is a planning permit for the roundabout and the coastal development permit associated with that. And so we are very interested in in seeing a resolution on that permit request, and certainly are happy to discuss the decision points that the council made when they decided on a roundabout versus some other alternative that we evaluated in the EIR, and also the pros and cons of those different design features. But I'd respectfully put forward that we are not currently undergoing an alternatives analysis for this particular permit.
Okay. Peggy.
I'm interested in the design of the roundabout and whether or not it'll accommodate school buses and trucks, deliveries of large vehicles, because I know some of the others that they don't take that into consideration and it's hard to maneuver around them. So is this one designed to be able to accommodate larger vehicles?
Yes, and this roundabout is designed for larger trucks, bus, and also logging trucks. And we have run our traffic templates around the roundabouts, and they are able to maneuver through this proposed roundabout.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I have a question. Is there just an estimate on what the cost of the roundabout portion of this is?
So currently we don't have that information because we are still in the design phase, and we will have that. And as you know, the cost is changing with the market price right now, so we don't have an estimate just for the roundabout portion. When we did the estimate in 2017 and 18, the total project cost was approximately in the range of 4.2. We are working with our design consultants and try to update that cost estimate as we are moving forward with the design on this project.
So at the time that you put it out, it was 4.2 million. Is that what I understood?
Yeah, not for just the roundabout, but for the whole project.
The whole project. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, there's a lot of people here, I think, that would like to speak on this one, so I'm going to open up the public comment. We've got a few callers too, so I'll take people at the podium to start with, and then I'll move on to the people that zoomed in. So please come up. Try to watch. There's a 3-minute time limit.
Thank you.
It's
Good
up on the
evening,
screen.
Commissioners.
Thank-
May I begin?
Yeah, please state your name.
Yes, I'm Kathleen Stanton. I am an historic resources consultant and a Bayside resident. I live on Jacobi Creek Road. And I'm here tonight to encourage you to deny the coastal development permit, the encroachment permit, and the EIR for this project. It violates the county's local coastal plan, and the EIR does not adequately address many other problems that have been made abundantly clear by a credible traffic engineer and attorney, Chris Hamer, which documents you have received. I've been actively involved in this project for years, and I work for volunteer as a historic resources consultant for the neighborhood group known as Bayside Cares. And I first became aware of this project back in 26 when there were charrettes at the old Grange. And there were other alternatives presented at that time, and the roundabout, as reported by SHN engineers the following year in their report dated 2017, stated that it was the most unpopular proposal and had the least community support, primarily because local residents didn't think that a massive concrete traffic circle with 5 light posts and flashing digital speed signs was a good fit for historic Bayside Corners. This is a very culturally sensitive area, with 5 identified landmarks that are currently listed on the National Register of Historic Places or determined eligible for the register by the State Historic Preservation Office. In addition, there is a prehistoric component to these properties, which are all recognized as significant and worthy of preservation and protection. A modern roundabout that will bring the old Arcata Road within 35 feet of the 1882 Temperance Hall, which is also an elementary school. Currently, there's 66 feet distance between the road and these buildings. This is an adverse effect to the historic setting and to the view sheds for these structures. These are protected by the Secretary of the Interior standards, and they have not been addressed in the EIR, and they have not been mitigated. Many people in Jacobi Creek don't want to see this new development in an historic area where we have a very powerful connection to our past and a strong sense of place and community. Bayside Corners is the civic heart of our community, which will be extremely altered if a roundabout is approved. We want to retain our identity as a rural residential neighborhood that is also historic and distinctive. Tonight is the first time that county residents, such as myself, have had a chance to reach out to you as constituents and ask for your help to preserve our sense of historic identity and place. We are not a gateway to Arcata, as staff proposes. We are separate, and we have a separate history from the city. Bayside Corners is where suburbia meets the countryside. And we don't want this historical area to appear
Your time is up,
urban
ma'am.
with the massive concrete traffic.
Thank you. I'm trying to be
Thank you
fair to
very much for
everybody.
your time.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lorelei Bean Mitchell, and I have lived on Jacobi Creek Road nearly my entire life. I was raised in my parents' home on Jacobi Creek Road, where they have resided for 67 years. I attended and graduated from Jacobi Creek School. My kindergarten class was the first one to attend the new school. My husband and I have lived on Jacobi Creek Road permanently for the past 33 years. Additionally, I was employed at Sunnybray Middle School for 25 years until my retirement a few years ago. I won't make you do the math, but that's a lot of trips up and down that road. Because of this, I have personal knowledge and experience with the poor and deteriorating condition of Old Arcata Road between Sunnybray and Jacobi Creek Road. I am in full support of the paving portion of this plan. However, I am not in support of a roundabout. I am concerned about the impact it will have on Mistwood School, as well as the additional light pollution and the impact it will have on the historic rural setting. I have never found there to be a wait time to be excessive, if any, either to get from Jacobi Creek Road onto Old Arcata Road or from Old Arcata Road to Jacobi Creek Road. It seems to me, and they were mentioned in this report, that there are safety measures that could be implemented instead of a roundabout. For example, how about speed humps, flashing crosswalk, or let's lower the speed limit on Old Arcata Road from the Bayside cutoff to Jacobi Creek Road from its current 45 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour or even less. And just this, something that I came up with in listening to him, if you've ever watched somebody who's intent on speeding, sure, you're going to slow at the roundabout, but the minute you're through it, you're speeding again. So I really don't see that that's going to be the answer. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak at the mic? Just keep things moving. Please line up so that you're ready to go. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, commissioners, for the work you do for the county. My name is Bob McPherson, and I've been a resident along the corridor for over 50 years. I've never seen any accident or injury, never a death along that, and so I question what are the safety issues other than opinions expressed that I hear over and over. I walk the road a lot too, and the problem is the miscreants that speed. And so a thing that perplexes us all along is, why don't we enforce the speed limits? You know, simple thing would increase the safety more than anything I've heard. The other thing that bothers me is, how can we mitigate 70% of what we don't know? This is a 30% design, and there's 70% we don't even know. And so I get these visions of, I'm the government, I'm here to help you. We had Dan Smith write a letter looking at the EIR, and hopefully you all read it. I sent it to you all, and I'm going to read his overview. So he's talking about the EIR. The above referenced documents do not provide any quantitative justification for including the roundabout in the project, do not provide any quantitative assessment of its performance, do not provide a comparison of its features to design standards and operational performance criteria, or assess what design vehicles is capable of serving. There is no assessment of some of the complicated operational considerations that exist at that intersection. The only assessments of the roundabout are in qualitative platitudes. In short, the situation is as if someone decided it would be nice to have a roundabout at this location, drew the largest one that could be squeezed into the county's public right-of-way, and said, this is perfection. Such an approach does not meet the requirements of the good faith effort to disclose impact that CEQA demands. A consequence, now these are my words, those were Dan Smith's words, and he's a traffic engineer, and his qualifications are in, oh, I see I'm running out of time. This is going to take the parking lot, which is a buffer to the kids, away. And how they mitigated this in the final EIR is really, they don't even show the calculations. They show tables and say there's no consequence. So you guys, it's going to be in your county easement. Read Dan's problems with the roundabout.
We'll let you go first. Yeah.
It's still Jim Moore. I live on Jacobi Creek Road. My kids have gone to both Jacobi Creek School and Mistwood. Over the last decade, I've spent over 1,000 hours walking, biking, and driving of the project area. Last October, I spent 7.5 hours over a period of about a week observing traffic at the site of the proposed roundabout and near the existing Buttermilk Road roundabout in order to better understand drivers' behavior. I'd like to thank the City Council, the City and County for working together to improve the safety and aesthetics at the intersection of Jacobi Creek Road and Old Arcata Road. I believe all of us support these goals, though obviously people of goodwill are disagreeing about the best method to achieve them. I think we're here in part because in the distant past, the city and county failed to coordinate such efforts. That's the only way to explain the abysmal signage, including the radar speed sign, facing northbound traffic at the intersection. The transition to 25 miles an hour and the radar speed sign should be moved to county land south of the intersection so that it is visible on the straightaway leading to the corner, and traffic calming lane separating islands placed at the intersection. Problem solved. Because the center of the roundabout is necessarily displaced eastwards, southbound cars will not be physically forced to slow. If they speed now, they will speed then. Advocates of the roundabout have claimed that many accidents occur at the corner. The State Transportation Injury Mapping System database lists 4 between January 2010 and December 2021, one fewer than at the Buttermilk roundabout, which is where the only serious injury in all that time took place. Recently, a westbound car, and Netra alluded to this, a westbound car traveling at about 80 miles an hour down Jacobi Creek Road literally flew through the stop sign and into a yard across from the intersection. A roundabout might have altered the trajectory of this car, perhaps into a house, but would not have prevented the accident. A roundabout is likely to increase the risk of accidents involving cars headed toward Arcata from Jacobi Creek Road. Instead of a stop sign, a roundabout will allow them to take that corner at around 20 to 25 miles an hour. The pump house on the corner reduces visibility toward the entrance to the post office, which is just 100 feet on. The likely results are obvious. Note that to improve the visibility at this corner, 2 large trees, a cypress and a redwood, probably will be cut. There is something wildly perverse about cutting down a redwood as part of a project to enhance the aesthetic appeal of the entry to Bayside and Arcata. In the 2017 charrette process, the roundabout was both the most popular and the most unpopular alternative. That was deeply divisive even then, before it more than doubled in size to what amounts to a classic bait and switch. It never would have gotten this far under ranked choice voting. Please do not allow it to go forward. We have better alternatives to achieve the same goals.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alice Finan from Mistwood Educational Center. Let me just get this sucker off. Thank you so much. This is not just a paving project. This is an extensive, disruptive, destructive, unnecessary monstrosity that has not been well planned, nor has it taken into account the voices and feelings of the children that it impacts the most. Our school is smaller than others. Our school is different. Our school is a private school, a homeschooling alternative. Our school is a sacred place. Students often come to us from public schools after being bullied, after experiencing high anxiety and stress. Students come to us after having gone through traumatic experiences. It is imperative that we provide the most safe, calm, and protective environment possible. Bringing the road 35 feet to the school is not safe. Having a roundabout right next to our main building, our outdoor classroom, our playground is not calming, and we do not feel protected. I cannot express to you how important it is to have that buffer as the parking lot as a buffer from our road. After being told by the city of Arcata that we will just have to build a bigger fence because the roundabout is being built, we feel defeated, we feel unheard, unprotected by those who are supposed to champion our cause, to listen to us and to protect us. We have not had a voice in this process. We gave input at the initial community feedback meeting that the crosswalks as designed were placed in sections of the road that are dangerous and are blind. We told the city that the roundabout would take away one of our driveways, the driveway that every single family uses to enter our parking lot. Taking that driveway away would negatively impact the accessibility to our school. Instead, the city chose to put the sidewalk where our driveway is. They chose to put a parking spot in front of the fire hydrant, where legally no one is allowed to park. It also does not accommodate our bike rack or our accessible parking area. This is a poorly planned project. The city is pushing this project through. Before you approve the coastal development permit, I think it's important that you ask yourself why. Why does a roundabout have to go at the intersection? Who is pushing for this roundabout? Does it benefit the majority of your constituents, or the students, or the Bayside community? Or does it financially benefit a select group of people with their own personal interest in mind? Has the city done their due diligence for the scoping project? Are we absolutely sure there are no negative impacts to the wetlands that make up this specific and sacred place? Do we have the permission of the Wiyot tribe to further develop their ancestral territory? Has the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District been involved in the planning? Will their water line that runs along the road be disturbed during this project? This is not just a paving project. This will forever change the environment of Bayside and our school. Please take this into consideration.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Grayson
pull it down.
Finan, and I go to And I go to Mistwood Educational Center, and I have been for the past 8 years. I speak for me and my classmates, and we feel that the roundabout, if it were to be put in, would be way too close to our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you.
My name is Susan McPherson. I'm a 50-year resident of Bayside. The Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Project is not, according to the Arcata Community Development Director, whom I quote, just a paving project. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Yes?
Yes.
It's not just a paving project, because if it were, everyone in Bayside would be for it. I oppose the proposed roundabout because the city of Arcata is trying to shoehorn it into a small space in too close proximity to National Register buildings, another that's eligible, the Bayside Post Office, businesses, and an elementary school, not to mention the sewage lift station, which is all in the mix here. There's simply not enough space in the middle of all these buildings with their daily comings and goings to site a correctly sized roundabout that would well accommodate continuing logging operations in Jacobi Creek watershed, for example. If you approve this project, I can only deduce that you favor cars over kids, vehicles over the Mistwood Elementary School kids, who, with their school, by their school and the adaptive reuse of the 140-year-old Temperance Hall, they are protecting its integrity and maintaining this historic Bayside resource. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Sue Moore. I live on Jacobi Creek Road. The City of Arcata's project is not contingent on the granting of this coastal development permit. It is only the roundabout portion that requires it. Humboldt County can work with its residents to develop a rural, natural resource-focused pedestrian and bike safety plan with vehicular traffic calming methods modeled around best practices already in effect in rural communities across the world. But that would require Humboldt County to want to do anything, after ignoring requests for over a decade to implement low-cost alterations such as reduce the speed limit from Bayside Cutoff to south of Bayside Corners to 35 miles per hour, with a lowering to 25 miles per hour at all times just south of Jacobi Creek Road. Additional traffic calming measures could be implemented on the roadbed, including solid double yellow lines from Bayside Cutoff to Buttermilk Roundabout, even paint the bike lanes clearly in a brighter color. A sidewalk from Graham Road to Bayside Corners on the east side of Old Arcata Road would finally connect Bayside to pedestrians. A rural project would include hedgerows and maintain the dark skies and rural ambience around which this community is developed. Bright lights, a large roundabout, an intrusive wildlife impeding retaining wall do not look forwards to reducing the carbon footprint. They look backwards. Bayside's floodplains, wetlands, and agricultural focus will be dwarfed by concrete and glare. The essential wildlife corridor from west to east will be negatively impacted. Contrary to the statement in the staff report, there isn't any evidence that this project will enhance bike and pedestrian safety, because there hasn't been a study of the current conditions nor modeling of alternatives. How can county staff recommend CDP approval for a project containing this statement? Excavation to accommodate the roundabout and roadway approaches is expected to be approximately 2 to 4 feet, although some isolated deeper excavations may be required to remediate poor soil, subgrade conditions. Who can approve a project for which no one knows the volume of earth removal, the number of vehicular trips to transport it, the noise, air quality, vibration, and drainage impacts to all affected buildings and surrounding floodplains in that Bayside area? Where is the solid data? Is this project, with its vast, unmeasured impacts, being recommended because it's a city and not a small business or as a residential homeowner? Because the city of Arcata promotes light pollution whilst the county is being tasked with reducing it? Please deny the CDP and request staff to work with the closely impacted residents, business owners, and NFPs to develop a low-cost, ecologically sound project. And if I may, as Secretary of the Bayside Community Hall Board of Directors, I'm submitting letters for the record. They were not included even though they were emailed in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else here that wishes to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open up the speakers they're on the phone, and the first one is 4882. If I remember.
Hello, Kent Sawatsky. Can you folks hear me?
Yes. Yes, go ahead, Kent.
So this project was misengineered. I was the person who brought up the fact that there was no crossing on that end down there about 2 years ago, and they should have put that in then. Of course, they didn't. Earlier, I spoke about what motivates these people, and we're totally in favor of a paving project. David Loya, go ahead and pave this, please. But as far as and put in a couple of speed humps, instead of spending all the taxpayers' money on this. You know, last time that David and I butted heads a little bit, I think that was Larry Hunter and me and David, and cost the city of Arcata $6 million. But that's a side issue. So this project is terrible. You've heard a whole bunch of testimony from everybody out here. You may hear from somebody who might have been hit by a mirror somewhere on this road, but there's been no traffic study, and this is the whole thing. If they had a traffic study and said there is a safety issue here, as far as I can tell, there's only been maybe 2 accidents. I think one would refer to some guy going 80 miles an hour. I heard about a drunk who went to the stop sign, and he probably would have gone the wrong way around the roundabout and had a warning. But there is no need for a roundabout. It just why should the taxpayers pay for this particular project? Now you have to deal with the EIR. So what are the impacts that are being not mitigated? And it's the light process. You've got 6 lights out there, and here's a concern I have. You know, and Cliff Johnson mentioned a little bit earlier. He said that this particular thing. The boundary was done by he didn't say meets and bounds, and that's the correct term. So here the county had an annexation, and it mapped this. And I guess we had a major thing. It was mapped totally different than his thing. When the whole process, can you imagine a map? And that's how it is mapped. But the meets and bounds do not agree with that. So anyway, that's a side issue, I guess. But the whole roundabout, technically, according to the mapping for the annexation, is totally in the county. And the testimony you've heard today, I haven't heard anybody so far testify. You may get some people on the phone testifying, I was afraid or I was this, that. But there is no traffic study that shows there is a traffic problem there that cannot be mitigated by I think, as Lorelei Mitchell spoke earlier, one of the first people to speak, a couple of speed humps and a couple of signs rather than us spending a whole bunch of money, taxpayers, fix the potholes out there, people. And the other problem I have is this thing, it dumps into 2 Class 2 bike lanes, which was brought forward, but there's no sidewalk for the people walking out there. So the pedestrians are left out in the middle of nowhere. It's a terrible project. It does not meet the constraints. And some very good experts. I mean, you have testimony from somebody who did a traffic study. So David Loya, please go ahead and show us a traffic study that disputes the person expert witness that we have. All these people can do is base their opinions on expert witnesses. You haven't brought any forward, and I think Bayside Cares has brought a bunch of witnesses and a great testimony. So I strongly back denying this project. If they want to bring a project through with a roundabout inside of Arcata, that's their business.
Your time's up,
in
Kent.
our world now. This is Humboldt County. Thank you for my time to speak.
All right, thank you. Sorry to cut you, but trying to be fair. All right, next caller is Jim Zolik.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. So my name is Jim Zolik. I live at 1766 Old Arcata Road in Bayside, about 3 doors down toward Arcata from the post office. If the roundabout goes in, which we're in full support of, we will see it from our bedroom window. So I am a closely impacted resident. I know you've heard from a number of folks who have issues with the proposed project. I'm one of the close neighbors, and there's many neighbors very close by around me who are in full support. And you'll hear from some more of them tonight, and I'm sure you've seen public comment, written comment from them as well. So this is not the city pushing a project. It's not big business making money. It's not the city pushing a project on the community that does not want it. There's a disagreement among some folks in the community about what's the best thing. There's many of us who feel that the roundabout, which has gone through the EIR process, it's been ratified and accepted. It's, these are engineers, traffic engineers, city engineer folks figuring out what they think is the best design here. And as Natra pointed out, the roundabout is the only thing that will slow traffic at that intersection. 3 doors down from that intersection here, traffic comes around that corner at 40 and 50 miles an hour. And it is unnerving. The roundabout will slow traffic. Might it speed up a little bit after that? Sure. But there are speed bumps and there's more controlled traffic going toward Arcata, toward the school. So once they slow down, they're going to tend to stay slowed down, at least for some period of time. And so the slow traffic is going to improve the safety for pedestrians, bicyclists throughout the Bayside community, as well as for the children at the Mistwood school. Right now, cars can come flying around that corner going up to Jacobi Creek Road at 30 and 40 miles an hour. With a roundabout, they're going to be slowed down dramatically. So I would say it's going to improve safety. It is going to impact things a bit, and people will need to adjust. Really, the intersection changed in 1946 into a high-speed highway curve. That's what ruined the rural character of this neighborhood. And I think the roundabout, many of us think it will be a great improvement. It could have signage. It could have vegetation to be beautifying the area. Right now, it's a asphalt and gravel intersection that is very unfriendly, very unsightly, and is not an environmental benefit. It's an environmental hazard, and it will be beautified with this roundabout. So I urge you guys to approve this project and this development permit from the city of Arcata. I think they've done an excellent job taking public comment, responding to public comment. Hopefully they can do more with the design as they go from 30 to 100% to work with the community to really try to minimize impacts that people are expressing. They've also coordinated with the County Department of Public Works, who had identified this intersection as a prime candidate for a roundabout to improve safety and traffic flow. Traffic flow and safety is going to be more of an issue as traffic increases with Cal Poly Humboldt and a big influx of population around here. There has been a few comments. Bob and Ginny
Sorry,
Ellis
your
live at
time is
18
up, sir.
Okay, thanks very much. Please support this project.
Thank you. Next caller is Rebecca Nordquist.
Hello.
Welcome.
I am a yes?
No, welcome.
Oh, thank you. My name is Rebecca Nordquist, and I am a co-director at Mistwood Educational Center. We are requesting the county deny the coastal permit for the construction of the roundabout in order to avoid adverse effects that will occur when the project is completed. Our main concern is safety. Bringing Old Arcata Road from 110 feet away to 35 feet is not safe. The fact of the matter is, right now, traffic flows parallel to our playground. The roundabout project will not only bring traffic closer to our historic building, it will force the flow of traffic directly out our outdoor classroom and playground. One of our 10-year-old students and mom from Mistwood submits this letter. My concerns with the roundabout are the road will be 40 feet away from where we are playing. Our school parking lot will be much smaller. If we are playing basketball, our court will be directly in line with oncoming traffic from the roundabout. It will be harder for my parents to get to and from school, and the noise will be really loud while we're out at our outdoor classroom with logging trucks driving right next to us while we are trying to learn in class. The environmental analysis discusses future plans for Jacobi Creek School to expand and build, but has not asked Mistwood about any future plans or current construction that we have underway. We have an outdoor classroom that would be right next to the roundabout if it is built. And other plans to acquire the neighboring parcel and build a unit for high school students are in the works. We feel that the proposed project would not only make our school unsafe, but it would also cause more traffic, result in less parking, and bring cars and semi-trucks closer to our play areas and newly constructed outdoor classroom. If a large part of our parking lot is removed, where will my parents, family, and friends park when we have a play or event that has guests coming to observe our activities? Why is the city of Arcata proposing a project that would take away most of our parking and put a road right up against our playground and newly constructed outdoor classroom? Also, what if one of those giant logging trucks isn't paying attention and rams through the fence and takes out our classroom? I am concerned for our safety and would like the city of Arcata to adopt an alternative that does not include a roundabout. If Jacobi Creek School was affected the way my school would be affected, there would be a lot of outraged parents and community members. It seems like the city doesn't really care about Mistwood or give us the same consideration as the other school that won't even be affected as much as us. I hope you are seriously considering our comments and concerns and adopt an alternative which would not put our school at risk by eliminating the buffer between the street and our play areas and classroom. Please keep Mistwood safe. Sincerely, Amber and Madrone Shelton.
Thank you. Your time's up, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is Miriam.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for taking calls. I'm a resident of the affected area down Jacobi Creek Road and often frequent this intersection walking, biking, and in my car. The current conditions are not safe. The alternatives that have been analyzed are also not meeting the project goals. I definitely support a roundabout because it improves safety, decreases emissions of cars as they idle at the stop sign, and honestly think it improves the aesthetics of the pretty dismal conditions of the intersection. I've read a lot of the comments and heard them from this vocal minority, and am actually somewhat surprised at the claiming of the parking lot to Mistwood School, which actually is a public right-of-way, and would ask that it be preserved for public right-of-way. I think that our city of Arcata staff have done an amazing job of creating a highly inclusive process that have included public comment and public participation over the last 7+ years. They've responded with analysis and mitigating measures and adjusting the proposal. And I have no doubt that Netra and team will continue to do so. So I urge you to take staff's recommendation that have proposed a safe, reasonable solution for this intersection. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is public 2122.
Good evening, Planning Commission. This is Uriah Driscoll. Well, after listening to some of the testimony and having followed this project for quite some time, it certainly seems like it is not a worthy project. It sounds like the residents in that area, even the opponents of this particular project, are in favor of a good project. But the impacts to the school, to parking areas, to the historic building, just appear to be unacceptable. And what I also would like to speak of is some of the history that I personally have encountered with the city of Arcata, trying to establish a project that does coincide also with the county right-of-way. And the city, even though it supposedly took public comment, it ignored the public comment, deleted it, altered reports, and created the need to file a lawsuit, which is still pending and which will probably, it just is wasted a lot of people's time, a lot of people's money. So the fact that the survey wasn't done properly in this roundabout project, that's quite telling, but it is kind of par for the course for some of the Arcata projects that I personally have witnessed. I think that that's just unacceptable. I think the decision makers need to have full, accurate information, as do the community who's trying to vet and who all of us want a better community. But some of these projects just seem to be making the engineers quite wealthy when a simpler, more effective project could be taking place instead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller is Lee Dadini.
Hi, this is Lee Dadini in Bayside. I've been to all the meetings on the old Arcata Road project. From the beginning, I wanted the intersection at Jacobi Creek Road to be a roundabout. I am in the majority. It will automatically slow traffic down, making it safer for drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists like my wife and I. Some people have said that the Mistwood School play area would be too close to the planned roundabout. If one makes a comparison to Jacobi Creek School, the kindergarten playground is just about 5 feet to the walking path at the pedestrian road crossing. The kindergarten play area is closer to the road than the proposed distance, the road of the roundabout to the playground fence at Mistwood. So please approve this project so we can move on to the final designs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, Gordon Inkles.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I just want to be sure.
Yes.
I think that I heard a suggestion earlier that we consider moving the speed limit sign on further up Old Arcata Road. That's a good idea, and because then people could slow down before they got to the intersection. I'm in favor of the roundabout. It has huge safety advantages, and I don't think it's well understood by some of the opponents. Respectfully, I've seen them all over the United States in my travels, and the accident rates go way, way down. Plus, I think they're attractive, and it's right now it's a very ugly intersection and a rather dangerous one. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next caller, Steve Mcdonald.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear public comment on this. Once again, my name is Steve McDonald. I live in the Jacobi Creek Valley up Jacobi Creek Road. I want to let you know that I am a resident and live in this area, and I do support the roundabout. The analysis aspects have been completed, and we're seeking the coastal development permit approval. I ride my bikes or travel to work and or take my daughters to school, and I prefer roundabouts as I'm traveling through Old Arcata Road to get to the schools or traveling. While traveling on my bike, I feel it's easier to enter a roundabout than not having the roundabout. There's two already on Old Arcata Road that I can enter with ease and feel safe entering. Having to travel south on Old Arcata Road and crossing onto Jacobi Creek Road, I'm cutting onto Jacobi Creek Road and have traffic coming at me at 45 miles an hour and oftentimes faster. My daughters and I feel that entering the roundabouts at Buttermilk and Union Street are much easier and safer as traffic slows down to allow for the bikers. I take up the whole lane while I'm in there, and the traffic slows down as it's coming in because they have to slow down to enter the roundabout. I've heard that the intersection described at Jacobi Creek Road and Old Arcata Road as beautiful or bucolic. And if you've been there, it's a very large asphalt intersection with gravel and a chain link fence. No identified areas for bike or pedestrian safety. The roundabout will provide these needed aspects and I believe will improve the look and the feel of the intersection. So I encourage you to approve this project and allow it to go forward with the roundabout and the paving. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, Jude Power.
Hello, thank you. So I live inside the Old Arcata Road project area, and I've lived here for 29 years. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that for the last more than 5 years, the California State Department of Transportation, the Humboldt County Department of Public Works, and the City of Arcata have all been working together on the proposed roundabout. They all believe it is the best solution to increasing volume and speed of traffic through Bayside. So it's a truly shared vision. It is not the case that Arcata alone has been shoving it down people's throats. Also, I would point out that there have been considerably more people, in fact, 2 to 3 times as many households in the community who support the roundabout as oppose it. 2 to 3 times as many households over the years supporting it, including cyclists, pedestrians, and drivers. For example, in one of the first charrettes, 80 people were in favor and 40 opposed. The same pattern has continued since then, all the way to the Arcata City Council meeting, at which they voted unanimously with one abstention in favor of the roundabout. At that meeting, there were 3 times as many people supporting it. So we have the state, the county, the city, and a substantial majority of households in strong support of the roundabout over years. I can't imagine you would vote against this long-term consensus of support. Lastly, I would like to ask that you keep in mind that children in the play yard at the Learning Center will actually be safer when there is a traffic calming roundabout at the intersection near their school. They will be more than 4 times farther from the road than the children at Jacobi Creek Elementary School. I just don't see that the roundabout's an issue for the Learning Center. It will actually make them safer. People are questioning the safety impacts of roundabouts. There is loads of data on the safety to pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers who all benefit from roundabouts. I refer them to the National Transportation Administration. Furthermore, the roundabout will be an aesthetic improvement to a very ugly, uncontrolled intersection. The City of Arcata has done an excellent job of encouraging public input and had the best interest of the community. I am in wholehearted support of the roundabout. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller, Evan Hatfield.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey, just want to share the thanks for the time and opportunity to speak this evening. My family and I live in Bayside, and we are very much in favor of the project as it is currently proposed. A little bit about us. We have 3 children, ages 8, 12, and 15. 2 of them attend Jacobi Creek. We use the post office. We walk the dog. We like to bicycle. We like to walk. As a driver, we are mindful of all the people and our neighbors who are doing the same thing and trying to do so safely. And it is with safety in mind that we very much support this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller, Sarah Dronkers.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, my name says my employer. I am not here representing my employer. I'm here as a resident of Bayside. I live on Highland Street, which dead ends right at Jacobi Creek School. I'm calling to voice my unequivocal support for this project and this roundabout. There's a very small vocal minority that has been opposing this, and I don't think that reflects the majority of the residents of this area. I also have 2 kids, one at Jacobi Creek School, the other who catches the bus from there. I feel nervous just about them walking that short distance, and they have friends who live up Jacobi Creek Road, and I've never felt comfortable letting them walk or ride their bikes there because of that intersection. Even when I'm biking, I'm nervous about that intersection, as others have said. So folks who talk about this being a bucolic rural area, that also in the olden times included children being able to bike and walk everywhere they needed to go. And that's not the world we live in right now. It's a really rundown, sad intersection right now. I think this project would beautify it, make it so much safer. And as someone else said, traffic will only be increasing as our population increases. And so I just want to strongly support this project. I think the City of Arcata has done an amazing job, gotten tons of feedback, and I hope you approve it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next caller is C. Sander.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You gotta have to turn your volume up. Good evening, planning commissioners. Thank you so much for taking our comments and hearing all of these very strong opinions about this project. I live up Jacobi Creek Road. I live here. I've lived here for about 12 years, and I support this project. I frequently walk and ride my bike along this route, and it's very dangerous. And I really support having a roundabout that will slow traffic. There's always a push and pull between enforcement and infrastructure, but there's not enough enforcement anywhere to help reduce the speed everywhere. And this one little roundabout will reduce the speed and make it safer for everyone. So I urge you to please approve this coastal development permit for the roundabout. Please use the public right-of-way for a project that will improve public health and safety for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller, public 2114.
Hi, this is Carla. I'm calling from Old Arcata Road. I've lived here for over a decade, and I strongly support this project. And I won't take up any more of your time. I know this has been an ongoing thing with very few small people deciding that their opinion is more important than others and the safety of everyone in this community. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next caller, Lena McDonald. Lene McDonald.
Go ahead. You're on.
I am 8 years old and my name is Linnea McDonald. And I live out Jacobi Creek Road. I ride my bike to school and I would like the roundabout to go on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, public 5294. Star 6 to unmute. 5294, are you there? There we go.
Hi, my name's Peter, and I have lived out here for a really long time on Jacobi Creek Road. When I first moved here, the county road used to go right in front of what is now Mistwood School, and the county, in its wisdom, built Old Arcata Road and an intersection, a T intersection. And when they did that, I was at the Grange and people would say, the sky is falling, this is a terrible idea, don't ever do this. Now the county has come up with or the city has come up with an idea of a roundabout. I'm hearing people say, the sky is falling, it's a bad idea. Progress is, Old Arcata Road has been improved since I lived here, all the way from Samoa Boulevard to the city of Eureka. And it's going to keep changing, and that's just the nature of the living here. So I think I'm in favor of progress, and I'm happy to see you guys taking it on. Okay, bye.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this topic? Okay, 19288998531. 8531. Go ahead.
Hey. Hi, this is Mark Delaney.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for this hearing. It's interesting the county has not been aware of this project until just recently. If it's been under review for 15 years, it hasn't been under review for 15 years I've lived here. I live at 2212 Jacobi Creek Road. It's not just a paving project. It's 6 lights with all the infrastructure, an incredible amount of impact to a historic view, an historic neighborhood, one that if NEPA had been carried out as properly required under Caltrans would have revealed the National Historic Preservation Act supports not doing anything, as do the general plans. 3 general plans, the Humboldt County General Plan, the Jacobi Creek General Plan, and Arcata 2020 General Plan. It says no changes to this intersection. Caltrans did a study for the Bayside cutoff. It said no changes to this intersection. Pretty clear that the roundabout will impact a school severely. It will also impact another historic building, registered a national building, a registered California building, and historic district, and cultural resources that belong to Humboldt County. For Humboldt County to have been misled by the city of Arcata up until this point is astounding. There are no businesses that were contacted, including Green Diamond, the the requirements for improvements, were there any accidents? There are only 2 accidents on the road ever. No traffic study. The project's supposed to cost $8.5 million for the whole project, $3.5 million of which is the roundabout. Does not seem an appropriate way to spend money adding highway infrastructure when Humboldt County has between $200 and $400 million backlog in maintenance. This is going to get maintained like all the other roundabouts Arcata has. This is not a gateway to Arcata. This land is not Arcata's. I met with Netra, who was one of the engineers working on the project, and we went over the boundaries. He agreed the majority of the project for the roundabout is outside of the city of Arcata. According to the county, there are 900 plus voters that live down Jacobi Creek Road, none of which were consulted. I'd like you to at least finish the NEPA and please involve the rest of the community. When it was originally heard by the residents in 2016, the people voted for no project or to leave it as it is, or minor improvements. The roundabout was an idea that Omni Engineering proposed late in 2016 after they merged with SHN and then became GHD. Okay. This is an insider job and pork. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 1565, please. There you go.
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Gwelyn Paliaga. I'm a resident in Arcata on Old Arcata Road. I previously was a resident in the county just south of this intersection on Jacobi Creek Road. I've lived in the neighborhood for over 30 years. I grew up riding my bike and walking through that intersection with fear and concern about the speed of traffic. My children now travel through that intersection visiting their grandparents who live on the other side, and I still am quite worried about their safety moving through there. I'm strongly supportive of the roundabout and also the rest of the Old Arcata Road improvements, which sometimes are glossed over in these conversations. Talking to neighbors and being in this community for a long time, I can say that there's a large majority of residents that are in support of the overall project. And the EIR findings and the City of Arcata Planning Commission and Council findings should be, moved forward. This is a good project, and I am strongly supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment. It's 7:31. We usually take a break right between 7:31. Anyhow, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and then deliberate on it and go from there. So stay with us. We'll take a small break.
Recording stopped.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I was requested that we do a new roll call because 2 of our members showed up after we started the meeting. So, Tripp, if you could redo the roll call, please, so that'll be on the record before we have a vote on this item.
Alan Bongio?
Yes.
Noah Levy?
Yes.
Brian Mitchell?
Yes.
Mike Newman? Mike's here. We're going to mark him as here. And we'll refuse him for this vote. Yeah. Melanie McCabra?
Here.
Peggy O'Neill?
Here.
And Thomas Mulder?
Here.
All right.
Thank you.
Looks like we have 6 voting members, so we're in good shape. All right. Thank you, Tripp. Okay, so we've had a lot of public input, and now it's back to us. The applicant, being the City of Arcata, would like to have us the mic back so they could rebut some of the things they've heard. I'm going to allow it, but I want them to keep it short. We've got other issues that we have to deal with tonight, so I'll welcome back the City of Arcata to speak.
Thank you, Chair, and I will keep it exceedingly brief. I understand this is a continued meeting, so it's a meeting outside your normal meeting schedule, and I appreciate everyone's time tonight here. The only points I will make, I guess, is, I was taking notes, and, it seemed approximately evenly balanced tonight, the number of folks that spoke in favor of and those who spoke against. There were several substantive issues raised by folks on both sides of that divide. And I would trust that the Planning Commission, though recertifying the EIR is not under your purview, that you did review and understand the depth to which we evaluated historic resources and all the other environmental issues that were put before you tonight. Again, as someone who's coming to you outside of your process as an applicant, I don't feel competent to advise the commission, but I would request some input from staff as to the process that is before us tonight. We didn't get a chance to answer your question about the pros and cons for the various different intersection types that we evaluated, and so I won't go into those, but I will offer that we're available to speak to those if you wish. So thank you so much.
All right. Is there any members of the commission that would like to hear anything from them on the alternatives that they looked at, I guess is how he put it? Okay. Then go ahead and speak to the alternatives that you put out there. You still there, David?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Director Khatri to speak to that.
Okay. Yes, definitely. As I presented earlier on my slides, definitely we have considered various alternatives for the intersection, which included larger roundabouts, smaller roundabouts, a signal, always stop. But however, as I mentioned earlier, none of those alternatives are we considered met the project goals. Hence, we move forward with the roundabout design. As earlier mentioned, as a different alternative, like having an island, definitely the island and a different travel channel was not considered, but I believe roundabout acts in the same fashion of creating an island in the middle of the road and channelizing the traffic. So I would say that is somewhat like channelizing the traffic through the roundabout for reduction of speed. So if you have a specific question, please let me know on this. But as you know, roundabouts are known to improve safety, slower the vehicle speeds, and they have fewer conflicts points as compared to a normal intersection. It reduces the collisions. It provides opportunity for landscaping and gateway features with dark sky standard lights. It promotes slow and continuous flow. It definitely reduces the crash severity due to lower design speed when the vehicles are approaching to the roundabout.
All right. Thank you. Thomas, you have a question.
Can I ask a question about the EIR that's within the county jurisdiction as to the city? Is that okay, or do I need to ask county staff about that? Okay. So in developing this EIR, was forming the bioswales to reduce sheet flow into the existing drainages, was that analyzed? And if so, will those bioswales improve water quality in that area, or will it be the same, or will it make water quality worse?
I would take a stab at that. I would say yes, putting a bioswale along the road as a part of the project definitely will improve the water quality. Water running from sheet, it will try to penetrate through the ground rather than doing a lot of flow on the private residence. So I would say it will improve the water quality through the project by adding bioswale and landscape around the roundabouts.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Thank you for that. If this was left a T intersection, would those bioswales be able to be formed to improve that water quality?
I would say adding any landscape structure around the road surface definitely will improve the water quality.
Thank you. That looks like that's all the questions. Oh, I'm sorry, Melanie, go ahead.
Yes. Did you look at whether there is enough room to add a row of trees adjacent to the school?
I would say not specifically, but I would say there is some room on where we are proposing bioswale and sidewalk. I can maybe share my screen where it shows the roundabout. I close that. Give me a moment here. I close my slides.
Oh, go ahead if you're asking for permission. I thought you were just doing it.
Oh no, I was just.
I'm sorry, I wasn't.
I was just opening my slide that showed the roundabout, so I can show where the sidewalk is proposed and where there's a bioswale. So I'm hoping you're able to see this screen here.
Yes.
So here you can see there is a room there's a sidewalk in front of the school and there's a bioswale. So I would not say tree, but there is a room for improvement for landscape and shrubs because we don't want to add tall trees. It may, we have not looked into if that would create a visibility issue for the vehicles traversing through the roundabout. But there is room to do some landscaping along the bioswale.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think that having some sort of hedgerow or something there might help in terms of the air quality for the children.
All right, Noah?
Yes, thank you. I have a question which may relate back to what Commissioner McCaver just mentioned, but my question is that we're told that this project is actually only at the 30% design phase, if I'm not mistaken. So, and yet, from what I can see of it, it appears to be fairly completely. It appears fairly complete in its design to me. But I guess I just wanted to ask you if that's the case, that it is in fact only at the 30% design stage. If approved, what sort of variables are there that might enter into the process of finalizing the design? For instance, is there room to make adjustments to the planned vegetation, to crosswalks and pedestrian walkways? What sort of things might change or be finalized in the final design that are not yet present in the 30% design?
So there are various elements. When we present it to the council and based on the public feedback, we are going to make some adjustment as we move forward with the final design, and we will incorporate public input as well in that process. So I would say we can do only things that has been encompassed by approved EIR documents. So I'll give you an example. For currently, plan does not show some raised crosswalk at some intersection, but that will be part of the project as we move through the final design. That will be included. Currently, we show a roundabout, which is 113 inscribed circle diameter, but we are thinking of maybe potentially making it maybe 110 or 111, as long as the geometry allows, as long as all the design vehicles are able to traverse through that, and as long as we can do that, we will do that. So those sort of things will be incorporated as we move to the final design. We have not definitely picked the plans, but that could be definitely part of the final design as well. So it looks like David has additional to add to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, thank you, Director Khatri. I just wanted to add to that 30% design doesn't mean that there's a lot of ambiguity around the potential environmental impacts or what the project is going to look like. 30% design means that it's designed enough so that you can evaluate those impacts. There's a lot of engineering that has to go into a construction level design that gets you from 30% to 100%. So that's an additional, information to some of the public comment around how we couldn't possibly have evaluated the environmental impact because it's only a 30% design. It's a slightly confusing term that's sort of like a term of art for engineering, but allows us to get enough resolution to make these sorts of environmental determinations and project level determinations.
All right. Brian, you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, what's the desired speed limit after folks go through the roundabout? You're desiring to lower the speed, it sounds like. What is the desired speed after?
I would say the desired speed in the speed limit is 25, and when people are approaching, they will be approaching at that speed. So that is a desired speed limit. However, it's known that with the roundabout, you can see the speed reduction to maybe up to 20 when they are going through the roundabout slowly. But the desire is not to exceed the speed limit in that area.
Thank you.
Can we also address the speed limit changes that I think the county has already proposed with or without the project?
Yes, please.
I don't have a full knowledge of that. I'm speaking with Public Works Department, and I believe Public Works Department staff Bob Bronco is also here. He can speak on that. What is the plan for reducing the speed? But as far as I know, there is in some progress made on reducing the speed limit just south of the intersection of Old Arcata Road and Jacobi Creek. And I'm not sure the timing for that is implementing. Currently, the speed limit is 35 and 45 in that area, but maybe Bob could speak on that for the timeline. But I know there is a process, and it's happening right now.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Let's bring this back. Does our staff want to comment to anything that they've heard or before we start?
I don't want to belabor the points for the commission, but if you have any, well, let me just say, this is a little bit of a unique project because we've got a jurisdiction that's asking or that has approved a project and is pursuing a permit within the county. The focus of the county's review is not on the overall design. The focus of the county's review is on whether or not there are coastal resources that are potentially impacted. One of the things that you will notice based upon the testimony tonight is that the testimony really wasn't related to coastal resources. It was related to the design of the project. And so the findings that the commission needs to make are related to the LCP, the local coastal plan, and the policies therein. And I'd be happy to answer some things were brought up about historic landscape. And let me just say, the EIR did address the fact that the buildings are historic, but the landscape is not. So that's a really important distinction. So the buildings are what's important. And the EIR has been certified. The county's not being asked to recertify the EIR. Mr. Loy is absolutely correct on that. And so what the commission does need to do, though, is consider the EIR and then make the findings in support of what the lead agency, which is the city of Arcata, had done. There were comments about the alternatives. The EIR, again, has been certified. Alternatives are not back up. The thing that is before the commission tonight is not to reconsider the EIR, but rather look at the coastal development permit. And I saw that there was a hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have to consider the findings included in our staff report?
The findings in our staff report should relate to the coastal development permit, yes.
Okay, so looking at finding number 6, can you talk about how we make that finding based on the evidence we've heard tonight?
That's the public health, safety, and welfare finding?
Yes, and also not materially injurious to any neighbors finding.
Well, I don't think we've heard anything tonight. I mean, we've heard lots of concern about whether or not the design is appropriate and whether it meets the safety objectives and things like that. But we have not heard anything tonight that really refutes the design as to whether or not the design is inappropriate.
Okay.
I want to say one thing that's very important for the commission to consider. A, the EIR was required to look at transportation, whether or not it puts people in unsafe geometric designs or not. That was not determined as part of the EIR. And so that ground has been covered by the EIR.
Did you read their master response number 3?
What's that?
Did you read their master response number 3?
I don't recall that off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Well, they state that the school will lose its parking, or part of its parking, and then it just stops. It doesn't analyze how that will affect their flow of drop-off and pickup and student safety. So I was just wondering how master response number 3 would say, they state that as a fact, as a response to comments from the community, how we can make finding number 6 in line of that. That's the only question I have.
Well,
I'm ready to go.
I don't, Commissioner Mitchell, with respect, I don't think that we're being asked to make the findings on the EIR, specifically whether or not those are adequate.
That's just what my staff report told me. So don't quote me. I'm just quoting your staff report.
Okay.
Thomas.
So now that we're in the question part, I'm just going to disclose it's public property. So Tuesday I had court, so I haven't been up that way since my daughter was in junior high, 7-8 years. So I drove up there, parked in the post office, walked around, looked around, took pictures. After reading over 50 emails, and personally, I didn't see the historicness as far as the landscape. I see the buildings. That's great, but the landscape was not there. And then I also took pictures. There's a building that doesn't meet the confines of the historic area just south of that Mistwood site. So for me, the historic, it's not like an old Victorian town that you drove through or something like that. I think the buildings are beautiful. The historic buildings are beautiful. The landscape where this project is going to, that we have to analyze, it's concrete, asphalt, power junction box, power poles, an old nasty pump house, all kinds of other things. So that's what I feel that we're analyzing, because that's all of that. With that said, my question to county staff is there currently an encroachment permit for the school that is utilizing county property right away for parking? Because I've heard a lot of concerns, and I respect the concerns about the parking, but that would be a good question, because from my look, when I just stood there at the post office and looked, it looks like the way that there's no vegetation growing up that even past that parking lot, that maybe at one point in time the roadway actually went right by where this roundabout's planned to go. But I wasn't around back then and I didn't do any research.
I'm going to ask Mr. Ronkel, who was popped up on the screen, to answer that question.
Good evening, Commissioners. Bob Rumpel, Deputy Director, Public Works. To my knowledge, there is no encroachment permit for the use of the area that Mistwood School is using for parking. It is simply undeveloped right-of-way at this point in time. That right-of-way area used to be the alignment of where Old Arcata Road was when the intersection was configured as a T intersection, with Old Arcata Road and Jacobi Creek Road being the through path, and the southerly leg coming from Eureka teeing into it. There is no obligation of the county to go ahead and provide on-street parking for any particular entity, and I believe that the zoning code further stipulates that all uses need to provide appropriate off-site parking regardless of the minimum quantities specified within the off-street parking ordinance.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that. And just to clarify, when I went there and looked at it, I was, after reading over 50 emails, that's why I was trying to go there and look and see all this, historic, and the landscaping, the buildings are beautiful, but the landscaping is what I was talking about that was kind of missing in the area. And then I pulled up my map and I was looking at it like just eyeball of like, okay, what do we have to analyze? And it's just right in the middle of this asphalt chain link fence that's broken. There's the power box that's over there by Mistwood, power pole, brown grass, and all those kind of things. So that's what I was really trying to focus on. I didn't, the thing that did catch my eye is that there's like a 2-story, just like square building with it's got like, must have a lean-to roof that's just south of Mistwood. And it caught me, I was like, that's really out of place. I'm surprised that building got built there. It's on Old Arcata Road, just south. I snapped a picture of it. It kind of caught my eye. So from the aesthetic look of my own opinion, that's not a professional, I didn't get that, that real historic, and that's, I don't know, that's what it is for me.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Any others? Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, in regards to finding number 6, that's one reason I was inquiring about the hedgerow for public safety. I would still like to see that. I don't know if that's something that we can add or not here. I feel like we could, given that that is in finding number 6. And it's not so much as a physical barrier, although that would help, but it would help with air quality. However, I will say that, there are many studies showing that air quality, respiratory health is really significantly correlated with distance to roads. Drops off, attenuates very quickly, but within 50 meters is very high. But I will say that it is balanced or perhaps canceled out by the fact that roundabouts do reduce air pollution to a great extent through the lack of idling at stops, for example. So I would like to see that hedgerow there for public safety, but I don't think it's hugely concerning for air quality.
Go ahead, Noah.
Okay, well, let me just start by saying I appreciate what Director Ford was saying before about the somewhat unusual legal posture of this project with regard to, compared to our usual consideration. The fact that we are a responsible agency rather than a lead agency considering a project is pretty unusual in my experience up here. So I admit to being still a little bit unclear about exactly how much we are or are not constrained in our decision-making process from proposing additional conditions or making. But I hear what Director Ford was saying about trying to narrow the focus of what we're considering to the coastal resources and not the overall design of the project. All that being said, it's not too much of a problem for me because I have looked at this project just as thoroughly and deeply as I can. It is, of course, in my district. I am the Arcata representative or the 3rd District representative. This is in my district. I have spoken to a number of individuals, both on pro and opposed to this project. I have, of course, read all of the several dozens of letters that we've received and the letters and comments that were associated with the original EIR. So I've really tried to study it as thoroughly as I can. I do personally find myself coming out of the opinion that the project as proposed is the best project to meet the goals. I understand the concern of Mistwood School, but I am somewhat troubled by the fact that a lot of those concerns are based on treating as a sort of entitlement what has really been the use of public property for their parking lot. And in fact, that parking lot really should be seen as part of the county right-of-way and is really designed for the purpose of improving the roadway, making it safe and making it beautiful, not for the private benefit of a small school. So with all that being said, I I do come out in favor of this project as it stands, and I would be prepared to vote in support of it.
Okay. Thomas, you had your hand up?
So finding number 6 is where I see some commissioners have, sticking point. And I just want to clarify with staff, from the way I understand this, if this was outside the coastal zone, we wouldn't be here, but maybe I'm wrong, because this is because we have to look at the coastal resources. Is that correct or incorrect?
No, thank you for reaffirming that. If I didn't make that clear before, and if Mr. Johnson didn't make that clear before, that is exactly the issue. The issue is there's that little section in the middle of this project that's actually in the coastal zone. And so the focus of the county review is what are the impact of coastal resources in that area.
Okay, thank you for that. So with that clarification, I'm good with finding number 6, and I'm also in favor with the project as it's proposed.
Okay, Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask what that means in reference to folks who still have concerns after tonight's hearing. Like what recourse or what avenue do they have to take those? Could you just repeat that for me, please?
Well, what I hear the question.
What should they do, what should people do if they still have concerns after tonight's decision?
So the coastal
Or
development.
what can they do? Can you just list their options for them so that they know? Sorry.
The coastal development permit that has been approved by the city of Arcata has already been appealed to the Coastal Commission. So any action that's taken tonight can also be appealed to the Coastal Commission. And that would allow then the Coastal Commission to take an action on the entirety of the project. That's what? It's still appealable. They can appeal.
I didn't hear the outcome. Can you repeat that?
So Mr. Johnson and I were just having a conversation because there's several kind of sub-jurisdictions within the coastal zone. One is local, one is an appeal jurisdiction, and one is a retained jurisdiction. Obviously, retained jurisdiction that's completely in the jurisdiction of the Coastal Commission. The appeal jurisdiction is an area where the Coastal Commission can appeal projects to themselves. And then the local jurisdiction is a situation where people can appeal actions of the local agency to the commission, but the commission won't appeal it to themselves.
Any other questions? I've had my hand up for a while, so I'm having trouble with this whole thing. I knew it was going to be a big issue. I think it's puts us in a very awkward position that we're asked to make a decision on this, but we're not supposed to take in really what the public comment is and what the public's concerns are out there, because we're just supposed to decide whether it meets the Coastal Commission's concerns. It's troubling. I want to disclose that I spent some time out there. I went out at 2 different times on Thursday after our last meeting, since it got continued. So I went out Friday morning, and sat there for 2 hours in the public right-of-way right next to the Mistwood School, and I watched what went on at this intersection. In 2+ hours, 38 cars went through that intersection. That's it, at 8 o'clock in the morning, that in that time. Didn't seem like that many vehicles to me. So I went back on Saturday thinking, maybe I missed something. It's 36 cars. 7:30 to 9. So I don't think that traffic is the issue. What I'll say is speeding is an issue. There's a sign right there. Electric sign flashes, 25 miles an hour, everybody was doing over 25 except one car. This is on the Friday morning. I didn't pay as close attention on the second day. But the point I'm making is that was one problem. Everybody was speeding. The second problem was nobody that seems to live in Jacobi Creek knows how to stop at a stop sign. 29 of 34 cars rolled through that, what we'd call a California stop. So that was the most obvious thing that I saw out of all of it. And I know that I'm just rambling. So I came away and I tried to come up with what I thought were the key points. And the things I saw were that, one, people need to pay attention to what's already there and not abuse the laws that are already on the books. I don't know what a roundabout costs. That my second point is, that's why I asked the question, but they couldn't give me a straight answer, and that doesn't surprise me. But I've got to believe it's in the millions of dollars, probably more than $1 million in a $4 million project. That's the most probably complicated part of this whole project. So started thinking, if there isn't a real traffic problem there, from my observation, I'm not a traffic person, okay, but I'm a pretty sharp guy. I can figure out things. I thought, what could you do with that kind of money? How many officers could we hire to do traffic stops and really do something about the problem, or other lesser things? I just think the bottom line is I believe it's a bad allocation of public funds. I don't know how they're getting the money. It's probably some kind of a grant, and that's okay. But things seem tonight, I mean, it was almost identical, the yays and the nays. For it and against it. I don't know what at 12:11. I don't know what the truth is there, if there's a bunch of people that just didn't call in, but I bet that's a pretty good representation. So is it worth doing all this, and are we supposed to decide that? And that's the quandary. And are there other choices? It seems like, and this is just an observation, but Arcata seems to think, in my opinion, that roundabouts are the answer to everything, because if you go to Arcata, they're everywhere. I mean, let's be honest, I'm not against roundabouts. I'm not saying that. But it seems to be the preferred means. One of the things that, and the reason I bring that up is one of the things that really came to mind as I'm sitting there watching traffic and actually getting pretty bored because there wasn't much. I kept waiting for a logging truck, and there were none. But let's remember that at the end of Jacobi Creek, there's still a community forest, which they log, and there's still private land up there that gets logged. And a lot of trucks that are going north, coming out of the freshwater drainage and other areas along Old Arcata Road. So try to wrap this up. I started thinking, this doesn't seem like this is needed here. So I went and sat at one other intersection, and that was Three Corners, or the one where Freshwater Road comes in, and sat there and watched. Now, there's an intersection that had lots of traffic and could use something done at it. It appears to me that we are not putting the resources where they should be used. So I will be not supportive of this project. Go ahead, Melanie.
Thank you, Chair. We don't have the information on the allocation of resources, but I tend to, agree with that. We don't know if it's the best use of resources, but that's not before us. So I will say that I do see roundabouts as the most sensible and environmentally advantageous form of intersection. And my only concern really here tonight was regarding the proximity to the school and the effect on the children, perhaps in terms of access and or air quality. They're not major concerns, and I do have confidence that the staff will be looking into those once they reach the 80% mark, perhaps. So I am in general support of roundabouts, and this one in particular.
Right. Thank you, Melanie.
If you could just make that a motion, I could support that. what you just said, your little concern, encapsulates my concern. So if you made that a motion, I would second it.
Well, so moved.
Okay.
Could you repeat it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is the
addition
motion? Because I'm
being
not sure that
a
I,
hedgerow along the side in front of the school.
To mitigate the distance to the school.
So the motion would include to basically consider the EIR, to adopt the findings, to add a condition to the conditions of approval, which require that a hedgerow be installed along the sidewalk adjacent to Mistwood School.
That's correct, thank you.
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'd, before supporting that, I would like to ask whether if we still have Director Khatri or Director Loya on the phone, I would like to ask whether attaching such a condition specific about the hedgerows would be disruptive to their plan as it currently stands. It seems reasonable to me, but I do want to, they've looked at this a lot more precisely than we have.
Okay, I see Mr. Khatri has his hand up, so I'll let him answer that question, but we're not going to get into a long back and forth, so go ahead, Mr. Khatri.
Thank you. I just want to maybe step up and say, it's feasible to add hedge. However, we just want to maybe add a condition that as long as it meets the safety requirements, because if hedges creates safety issue for sight distance and visibility, then we cannot do that. It has to be something else. So I will add that condition with as long as it meets the safety requirements, and it could be a part of encroachment permit process. And I see Bob has his hand raised. So because we have to get an encroachment permit from the county for the project, so that could be in that process. So I'll let Bob speak. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Barakal, the concern that Public Works has with any vegetation within the county maintained right-of-way is who is going to be responsible for going ahead and maintaining it. The county does provide mowing of our rural right-of-ways, and we have industrial-grade equipment that is not really suitable for maintaining hedges in a more urban setting. So that is something that would need to get flushed out when such vegetation is planted next to a sidewalk, especially considering that the vegetation will be growing and encroaching into the sidewalk area. It will require a certain amount of constant maintenance to ensure that the full width of the sidewalk is available for use by the public.
Thank you. Go ahead. Bob, you have
Through
a
the
question.
chair, a question for Mr. Bronkel. Once this if this motion on the table goes through and the right-of-way or the roundabout is constructed, who would be responsible for the maintenance of the asphalt surface, the concrete in the roundabout, and also the landscaping in the center of the roundabout that happens to be in the county right-of-way?
The portion of the roadway within the county's jurisdiction would be, the maintenance responsibility would be that of County Public Works. With respect to the center island within the roundabout, what would most likely occur at that point is the city and the county would enter an agreement that would allow the city to go ahead and maintain that landscape like they do with the other roundabouts down the road.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Not a follow-up question. I have a question for the motion maker and the second.
Okay.
I don't even know if this would be appropriate, but hearing that, I think it would be appropriate, if legal, to add a condition of approval that all landscaping or authorized or whatever, all landscaping in the center of that roundabout and all the concrete around the roundabout would be the city of Arcata's financial responsibility to maintain. So that way, this island, those are going to be the two most expensive components, in my opinion, for the maintenance within the county right away. It would be unfortunate for that financial burden to fall on all the taxpayers within the county. So just throwing that out there.
I'd like to ask the director if that would even be feasible. It seems to me that might require.
So I'm going to ask Deputy Director Bronco to step in and see if that can be accomplished through the encroachment permit.
That can be accomplished through the issuance of the encroachment permit, that the maintenance of the center island would be the responsibility of the applicant, in that case being the city.
Okay.
In that case, I'm happy to alter the motion to include that, and also to add the language for the condition requiring the hedgerow such that it meets all the existing regulations, safety standards.
Okay. Is the second in agreement with that? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. Tripp, you're up. Roll call vote.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Alan Bongio,
No. All right. Motion
Mike
carries.
Newman recuses.
He's absent. So motion carries 5-1 with one abstention. So thank you, everybody, for all your input and a lot of time spent.
Oh, my roll call didn't work out.
Yeah, I think Josh is going to go let him know. So.
You know, the roll call that I retook.
Mm-hmm. Is that really an issue?
And they would be allowed to do that.
Sorry. Took a while. All right. Okay, well, where did I put my agenda now? Ah, there we go. We only have 2 issues. All right, so we're gonna move on to item number 2, the PG&E after the fact coastal development permit in Trinidad area.
We can talk about it.
We'll take a staff report, please.
Can everyone see my screen? Sorry, Commissioners. This is Leilani Shine with Land Logistics.
Yes.
Yes, we can see you now.
Yes. Thank you. So this is the PG&E project after the fact coastal development permit 14376-CDP. The project site is located within the Trinidad area on the east side of Patrick's Point Drive, approximately 1.2 miles north of the intersection of Patrick's Point Drive and Seawood Drive. The present general plan land use designation is coastal timberland, TC. The present zoning designation is commercial timber design review streams and riparian corridor. That's TC, D, and R. It looks like this is located outside of the Trinidad coastal scenic area. The project staff report says that it is appealable to the Coastal Commission. Staff believes that this is an error and that it is not appealable to the CCC. This project is an after-the-fact permit to modify an existing electrical distribution facility previously constructed without permits in the existing public right-of-way. Proposed modifications to the facility consist of the following: removal of one 45-foot tall utility pole, replacement of two 45-foot tall utility poles with 55-foot tall poles, installation of a new 55-foot tall pole, and 3 platform-mounted voltage regulators. The poles were installed within the county right-of-way and near the driveway that serves parcel 517-041-016. An existing utility pole is located 8 feet south of the existing driveway and will remain in place. The design standards for the allowable pole sizes for platform-mounted voltage regulators has changed to a 55-foot tall pole. The previous standards allow for a 45-foot tall pole, driving the need for the height increase of the existing facility. PG&E is proposing to install 3 55-foot tall poles in accordance with these standards. These new poles would be 10 feet taller than the existing 45-foot tall poles. Additionally, the height of the conductor and distribution line would change to be that same height. The utility pole proposed for removal is located 2.8 feet north of the driveway edge. After removed, it will be replaced to increase the setback distance on the north side of the driveway edge to 18 feet. The removal of the existing northern pole will improve ingress and egress access to the driveway. The total of 3 new 55 tall utility poles and removal of the 3 45-foot tall poles are proposed at this time. No net increase in the number of the total utility poles is proposed. Only one location, approximately 46 feet north of the driveway, includes a new pole installation. According to the applicant, PG&E, it was necessary to install the voltage regulator along Patrick Point's Drive, and this would be effective to serving customers along the circuit. PG&E provided a statement after field trips and consideration of various proposed locations. The project site was found to be the most suitable due to availability of existing right-of-way, accessibility, and environmental constraints. Additionally, installing the regulator bank at the project site avoided the need for additional above-ground PG&E facilities to improve service reliability and could further impact the scenic character of the road. For these reasons, the project location was determined to be the least impactful to land and environmental resources. The proposed project is consistent with the general plan's policies. It's consistent with the Trinidad area plan policies. It is located outside of the coastal scenic areas. In the coastal scenic area section, it requires that new public facilities should be limited to above ground power lines less than 30 kilovolts. The project proposes above ground power lines with 12 kilovolt capacity, and in that regard is compliant with the TAP. There were multiple public comments received by the adjacent property owner and other neighbors that had concerns about the impacts to visual and scenic resources for the project. These concerns are also about the logging truck access, availability into the existing driveway. It's believed that increasing the utility pole setback to 18 feet from the northern driveway edge will improve the visibility for car traffic along Patrick's Point Drive and also increase the accessibility for logging trucks entering along that driveway. This project is exempt from CEQA and is under Section 15303D, new construction or conversion of small structures. I would be happy to answer any other questions at this time.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Is it possible that any of this infrastructure could be put underground?
I have not received that information from PG&E that was indicated. I'm not sure if staff might have received any other correspondence or information about that.
I'm not interested in what PG&E wants to do. I'm interested in whether or not the infrastructure could be put underground. Because they're going to go with the cheapest, which is above ground, but if it's in a coastal area, all these unsightly poles could possibly go underground, but I don't know enough about the infrastructure to know if it can be underground.
I'm not aware of that as a separate proposal or as that is being proposed as an option. I'm not sure if staff has anything else to add to that, but to my knowledge, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, if I could, through the chair, I don't know if PG&E is here, and that might be a question for them, but my understanding is that a similar facility was put underground in the city of Eureka recently. So I think it may be a possibility. I would want to clarify that with PG&E, but
okay. Do you know if any? I don't know these names, so I don't know if these are PG&E people or not. No.
I'm not aware of PG&E being present for this meeting. They were notified that this meeting was previously scheduled for last week. And so they were in the process of providing us with other details about the cost estimate for the project. But we have not received that additional information or other correspondence for them to be present here tonight.
All right. Mike, you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The question I have is you mentioned in your report towards the end there about logging trucks entering, but nothing about exiting.
Sure. I think the overall concerns were ingress and egress. So just the proximity to the poles in relation to the driveway. So there is that northern pole that will be moved from that driveway in proximity to the driveway edge. The southern pole is going to remain roughly 8 feet from the driveway edge. And so I think PG&E's proposal with that movement of the pole on the southern side of the driveway is intended to just improve overall access.
Have staff looked at this, or engineering, transportation, for finding out about anything on that particular item right there, since that was brought up before?
The ingress and egress, I'm not sure that...
For logging trucks, you know, specifically loaded logging trucks.
Sure. So comments were received specifically about logging trucks. That's what staff's original comments that they received included. But other than reviewing what PG&E had proposed as far as this alternative relocation to the poles, I'm not sure what other analysis has been done for ingress and egress. It was just looking at overall improved access around that driveway area.
When you say improved access, you're just talking about regular vehicles? Nothing really looked at for long vehicles?
Yeah, I don't think there was a comparison between a regular automobile and a logging truck. I
Okay,
think this was just looked at as overall vehicular access, yeah.
Okay. Thomas, you have your hand up?
Through the chair, my question is, because I read the comments on this and it seemed like with the installation of this, it really disrupted the property owner and at the apron there. So I was curious, I didn't see it in the staff report and I could have missed it. Does this, if approved with the proposal, does this, are these poles, even though it's in a transmission right away, would this impact the property owners right away? Because there's, I mean, usually when parcels are subdivided, they got to be, I mean, this one, it was been merged, but it needs to be 40 feet wide, I think, the roadway. So does that, is the distance between the pole that's going to stay and the next closest proposed pole, is that 40 feet in width or is it less?
Let me pull up the diagram here. So it looks like the pole that will be relocated is 18 feet from the driveway edge. The current driveway width is 18 feet 6 inches, and the pole to the southern edge would be 8 feet to the south. So just doing some math quickly here, it looks like that would be a total of, let me see.
44 and a half, I think. 18 and 8 and a half, or 18 and a half, yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So, thank you.
So I don't understand, did PG&E just decide that they wanted to improve this, or are they being required to improve it? I don't understand that part of it. And I mean, if we were to come back and say we'd like to see a proposal to do underground because it is in a coastal area and they're increasing poles. Yes. Okay. They're increasing the number of poles, the height of poles in a coastal area. There's impacts, you know, accidents can occur, people can run into poles. I'd like to see it go underground, and I don't know if PG&E would, you know, it is going to cost more to go underground, but it can be done. And would they just say, well, we're not going to do it, or are they being required to do it because infrastructure is failing? I haven't known them to just really go out and start improving facilities in the county on their own, so I'm not understanding really why they picked this project, or if they're being required to, if it's failing. But I'd like to see a proposal that it goes underground in the coastal area.
Leilani, do you wasn't there some information in the application materials about the need for the regulator to be installed here? My understanding was that there was some issues with reliable service.
I believe I had seen from some of the response from PG&E to the public comment that PG&E believed that the regulator service was necessary in this area to have continuous power supply to the residents of the area. Whether or not that could be put underground, I did not see that in that letter, but the area from PG&E's standpoint does need to have some type of regulator infrastructure. Does that answer your question?
I don't know if it, does that answer your question? I don't know. Okay. Seeing no other questions, we're going to open this up for public comment. So the first caller is 7108. Tandy? Why the public?
No, I said I would.
No, I'm just, okay, the first public is 7108 if you want. Oh. So there's nobody there that wants to speak. Okay, I'm sorry. When three names were up there, I just assumed that somebody was going to. All right. And then I'll ask for public in the audience. I think you pointed that out. I couldn't see him over the podium.
Shall I
Welcome.
start?
Yes, welcome.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Gutero, and I live on. My name's Jeff Gutero, and I live on Patrick's Point Drive, and I've lived in the same residence in that location for 30 years. In March of 2016, the utility put this regulator immediately adjacent to my driveway, and I've been squawking about it for the last 6 years. In April 2018, 2 years later, this was posted on that regulator, identifying it as a nuisance because it didn't have a coastal development permit. And now we have an after-the-fact coastal development permit application, but it's not on the nuisance regulator. It's in a new regulator in a different location that's taller. Therefore, that regulator isn't before this commission tonight. And for that reason, the resolution in the staff report is defective. 5 out of 6 of those findings refer to the new regulator as consistent with the existing infrastructure in the area. The only existing infrastructure is normal utility poles. The other regulator is a nuisance. It's not properly in place. And they're proposing to use justification for the new one on a nuisance prior existing for 6 years. It was never appropriately in place. Such findings shouldn't be based on such bogus evidence. Now let me focus on aesthetics. Patrick's Point Drive is an iconic scenic roadway with coastal redwoods and beautiful ocean vistas. These are the type of coastal resources that the Coastal Act is designed to protect. Both the nuisance regulator and the proposed new regulator are out of place, and 4 households in my neighborhood filed objections with this commission asking that you deny this application. But everybody knows the regulator's got to go somewhere. I refer you to Exhibit 9 to my prepared presentation, which is a job sketch by PG&E for the nuisance regulator. And in the location notes, it says specifically that this regulator is designed to serve Big Lagoon and Oric substations. That's 20 miles away. You've got to find an appropriate place in 20 miles. And for this reason, I request that you deny this application and send this regulator back to the drawing boards. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there any other public that wishes to speak on this? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back to the commission. Where do we want to go with this one? Go ahead, Thomas.
So, is staff, that last part of the public comment just kind of mind blew me. Is that regulator, because what I read in all the different comments is the regulator was to service residents along Patrick's Point Drive and all those kind of things. And then this last comment about this drawing. So which one is it? I guess is what I'm kind of, does that regulator service substations to the north, or does it help the residents south of it, I guess would be my question.
Sure, I can try to answer that. Leilani Shine with Land Logistics. From the letter that I saw responding to Jeff Guterres' original comment, provided that initiated this coastal development permit being applied for, it sounded like in that letter, PG&E had indicated that this did service residents in the nearby area, including Jeff Gutero, and that was the singular letter that I saw provided in response to his original comment. I have not seen additional comment from PG&E stating that, so that is something that we could check with PG&E or find out additional comment on that. But up to this point, no.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
Just
then Noah.
Just hinging on that right there on this particular letter. Do we have the complete letter in our packet? Or page one
I believe
only?
it was provided as an attachment.
Tell me where.
Let's see, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can find that. So the original letter from Jeff Gutero, it looks like is on page 25 out of 77. So it's titled Draft 6-2020. And that includes the photos.
So are you talking about the 3-page letter from Jeff, or are you talking about the PG&E letter that I see page 1 of only, which is in response to his 3-page letter? It's dated May 10th, 2017, and it's talking
Yes,
about
I'm
PG&E. PG&E is trying to explain why, and I don't see the rest of the letter in the packet.
Yes, I'm sorry, that is correct. So that is the response letter attached to Jeff Gutero's draft. So that's page 4277. So that is the singular page that I'm talking about, received from PG&E as a response.
This one here.
So we're
I'm sorry, I can't see your screen.
here.
Can the camera come to me?
I guess the question would be, where's the rest of the letter?
Well, that's what I was asking.
So if I could, Chair, this is actually part of the submittal from Mr. Gutero. So it appears that he had, based on what I'm seeing, may have just included that first page. And I don't know, he's here, so he might clarify that.
That letter was included in my presentation because it was a letter from their law department, PG&E's law department, with a bunch of things I covered in my presentation. It never said, to my knowledge, that this regulator served local customers. I never saw that.
Yeah, it just says serving customers along this section of the circuit to be, and had to be installed along Patrick's Point Drive. Then it starts off, and I don't see the rest of it. This particular location for this regulator was, and that's it. I would think that as part of it, with staff getting the comments from Mr. Gutierrez, that would have been something maybe to try and ask PG&E for. I just find it troubling to not see why, and the permit that does say, as Mr. Gutierrez pointed out, it's to serve Big Lagoon and other places for this permit.
Okay. Noah, did you still?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I guess this is a question for staff. To the best of your knowledge, since we don't have PG&E here, given that this facility currently exists, given that it has been deemed a nuisance by the county in its current location, but given that I think all sides seem to agree that the equipment itself serves a necessary function, I am curious what would happen precisely if we were to deny the permit. Is it your expectation that PG&E would then be forced to come back to us with an alternative proposal for where they would site this equipment?
Yeah, I believe so. One of the things to clarify, though, is that you're correct. The existing regulator infrastructure was deemed a nuisance because it had not obtained a coastal development permit. And so in seeking the coastal permit, and I believe in trying to address some of the concerns about access, they're going to move it. So it's not necessarily justifying the nuisance there, but in seeking to permit what was constructed without a permit, they're actually going to replace it by moving it away.
No, I do understand that, and I understand that in the proposed alternative location, it would not be a nuisance, or at least not be a nuisance for the reasons that the county found it to be, and yet there are still the suggestions being made that wouldn't it be better if it were underground? Wouldn't it be better if it were in a different location? And so I'm just kind of wondering what would happen if we were to deny it. I mean, yeah, as best as we can predict.
They would be required to remove it.
But it needs to be somewhere, as I understand it, because the equipment is necessary.
Well, that's part of the thing I think the commission is appropriately struggling with tonight, is that there's not good findings that this is a necessary piece of infrastructure at this location. And there's been evidence that's been submitted to say that this is really serving a distant location. And so the commission does have some options here. The commission could choose to deny it based upon the findings that it has not been demonstrated that this is here to serve the local community, and evidence has been presented that shows that it's been designed to serve a distant community, in which case they would have to reapply to relocate it, put it someplace else. The commission could decide to continue it and ask for additional information to justify this location, to justify its placement here, and also ask whether or not this can be undergrounded or not at this location. So there are some options there available for the commission based upon the conversation I'm hearing.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Okay.
I agree that they're not giving us enough information and options that we could consider alternatives. They're just saying, hey, it's there, let's just, add another pole and call it a day, because that's the cheapest route for them to go, and the least expensive route. And there could be other better alternatives, specifically because this is in a coastal zone, that we should be considering, and we're not being given those options. And it may cost PG&E more, but so be it. We had to put parts of our projects underground because of certain areas that they were located in. It did cost more, and but that sometimes is the case. I don't think that it's going to break the bank if they come up with some alternatives.
Thomas?
So, being as it was posted, I have to ask this question. Is PG&E fined for this as they got an abatement technically? Or
So when we issue the notice to abate, that doesn't necessarily come with fines. It's the notice of violation that carries the fines. We typically, particularly in traditional code enforcement cases, use the notice of abate to abate, to put people on notice that they're in violation, see if they will work with us to bring the site into compliance, in this case, obtain permits, the necessary permits. They have been doing that, although it has been at a very, very slow pace.
Go ahead, Mike.
thank you for that.
Isn't there a cost involved in that? For the notice of abatement and filing and all of that?
Yeah, there are administrative fees that we will charge them, but we didn't charge them the normal daily penalty fee. I don't believe.
Right, not a penalty, but the cost to do the paperwork.
Yes.
So there is a cost that they need to.
Yeah, there will be a reimbursement to the county for the time that the code enforcement unit spent to get this to where it is.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Go ahead, Tom. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mike. He's passing the.
Okay. I'm of a mind to deny it outright because it's just like steamrolling, trying to get this done by PG&E without any input that I see on this whole plan here. So that is my take on this.
Thomas?
So I'm not quite there. I don't feel that I have enough information to prove one way or another that that needs to be in that location to service the residents of Patrick's Drive, or is it to serve residents north? That's where my hang up is. I'm really torn on it, but it does feel like we're a large corporation. We're just going to do whatever we want and, suffer the I don't know. That's the tough part on me because I know people that have done things this manner and it ended differently.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, I'm inclined to deny it as well, or, I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really make a difference whether we deny it at this point or ask them to come back with alternatives and everything that's lacking, because it's, presumably they'll come back with it if we deny it anyway. So, I'm happy with either of those. I guess it comes down to who makes a motion first.
I think that if we deny, if we deny it, they'll just ignore it for a long, long time. If we came back and said you need to come back with alternatives, they might have to do something. But my experience with them is that they will do nothing unless they're fined, and even then, maybe not.
Go ahead, Thomas.
So this one's for staff. If we denied it with findings that we don't have the appropriate evidence to show that that equipment services the residents in that general vicinity, and the evidence we've been shown leads us to believe it services residents further north, so we believe it should be placed further north, then PG&E would have the opportunity, if it really does service those residents through the appeals process, to provide that information, and it would give them kind of motivation to submit that information in a timely manner to the county. Is that correct or incorrect?
I think that might be correct, but one of the things I was hoping through the chair, if you would indulge me, I'd like to share my screen, if that's okay with you. Thank you. There is a project description that was submitted that unfortunately does not look like it made it into your staff report. But you'll see here under scenic resources, if I can zoom in to that, they are talking a little bit about the reason why they decided to put it in this particular location. And it seems as though this may have been something similar to the second page of that letter that is missing.
You don't have the first page of it, so you could see that, or?
Well, this is a separate letter.
Okay.
Yeah, I will kind of move it up to the top as well. So this is something that I believe was intended to be part of your staff report packet. I'm seeing that it was not included, unfortunately. So apologies for that. This talks about some of the reasons why that location was chosen. And then scrolling up further,
Well,
It still doesn't offer any alternatives. I mean, normally you say we don't do anything, we do this or we do that. It gives you a couple alternatives that they looked at, and that's what I think is missing. The alternative they have to do something because they're a nuisance, and You know, it doesn't bother me so much, you know, I think people north need to be served. So, you know, I don't want to discount, you know, improving services to Oric or Big Lagoon. It's just how do you, or where do you site those facilities, underground, above ground, at a different location? And if they looked at alternatives, you know, what was the pros and cons of those alternatives, other than this is the cheapest way to go, because we're already there, and I would like to see some alternatives. And I don't know if, you know, the speaker agrees with that type of thinking.
It doesn't.
You know, does that matter?
No. Would you like to make a motion to that effect, that you'd like to
Sure, if
see
I
some
can remember what I
alternatives?
just said. Put it in writing for me.
I'll second what Peggy just said.
Then I would just like to not deny it, but to postpone it until we have additional alternatives and what the pros and cons of those alternatives are, and additional information as to, you know, who's being served and what, it wouldn't bother me if it was at that location and it improves services north of there, because everyone should have good PG&E. It's just, you know, maybe there's a better location or a better way to do it other than just stick another pole, couple taller poles in the ground.
The
make sense?
director put his hand up, so I'm going to let him.
Yeah, so what I hear Commissioner O'Neill basically saying is that this would be a motion to continue this to a date uncertain, to allow PG&E to develop information on why this facility needs to be at this location, the area that it serves, and to identify why the proposed design is the best as opposed to undergrounding it.
In a coastal zone.
Yes, in the coastal zone.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, Mike? Yeah.
Well, I think we have to take into consideration, along with that, Mr. Gutierrez' assertion about the exit and entrance into that parcel for logging trucks, because that's what that entrance is part for, is to have access in there for harvesting timber that is still permitted to do. So there needs to be something along that line as well on the motion for PG&E to come back
And
with.
that all factors in whether that's the best location, you know, that would be one of the considerations. One being that it visual, traffic, ingress and egress for logging or any other type of service. So that's all the information we don't know, because we're not being given that information. We're just saying, here, you know, here's what we decided and approve it.
Go ahead, Thomas.
And that was the reasoning for my idea of going the other way, hearing that the applicant, from what I heard, maybe I misheard, isn't so quickly to provide information, that if the project was potentially denied, then they would have to provide that type of information to substantiate an appeal. Or that's why I was thinking of going the other way, because if we continue, I'm not in support of continuing to a date uncertain, because that the PG&E could say 2 years before they say anything. You know, you go through a couple harvest seasons and a property owner can't harvest timber, and that's why I'm uncomfortable with kicking it down the road to a date uncertain, because a date uncertain could be when I'm not here, when all of us aren't here. I don't know.
We do have a motion and a second on the floor, so we're kind of getting.
Discussion.
Yeah, I know, but just trying to.
I was discussing why I won't support the
Right.
motion.
I get it. I just remind everybody that there is a motion and a second out there. So, any more discussion on it?
I would just like to ask the director about what Thomas just mentioned. Is there any way of holding PG&E's feet to the fire to respond?
I think.
if this motion goes through.
So if this motion goes through, one of the ways to hold their feet to the fire a little bit better would be to, instead of continuing it to a date uncertain, continue it to a date certain, so that they have to respond within a certain amount of time.
Okay.
And I would go either way. It doesn't bother me to deny it also. It just, I don't know what happens if we deny it. Does that mean they wait 10 years and don't do anything?
Well, if they deny it and they're not responsive, if they don't appeal it, as Commissioner Mulder is anticipating that they would, then they would once again be in violation. So then we would be revisiting the notice to abate and potentially adding a notice of violation onto that because they're not
For
making.
them, is that really a big deal considering all the other things that they've gotten in trouble for?
Well, I think it is when we start issuing fines and penalties. PG&E frankly tries not to. I think when we have conversations with them, when the rubber meets the road, they don't just completely disregard the county. They at least try to work towards a solution.
I would like to see services improve to the entire community of Trinidad and Newark and Big Lagoon. I would like to see that. I just don't think that in a coastal zone that this is the only alternative and that they haven't presented those alternatives. And, you know, it could be because of cost, but that shouldn't be the primary consideration here.
So the maker of the motion, are they okay to do it to a date certain?
Yes.
And the second?
So perhaps, Peggy, as the motion maker, would you consider proposing that we continue it to the third week in June, which would be our second meeting in June, June 16th? Give them a month, basically, a little more.
After that, we deny it? If they don't respond?
Okay. So the maker's okay with
Yes.
that? Is the second okay with that?
Yes, I am.
All right. So with that, any further discussion? All right, Tripp, roll call vote, please.
I think I was.
Noah?
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
and Mike Newman.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries unanimous 7-0. So we'll be seeing that on June 12th, or 16th, excuse me. All right.
Third Thursday.
Yeah, that gets us to our last item, which is night sky violations on cannabis farms. So are we going to have any kind of a staff report on this, or is it just going to be a discussion?
I think staff's here to listen.
Okay. Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you. So I looked into a few of the different ways you can measure the dark sky or dark glow, as it's called. And I just wanted to bring something up for the public as well. It's called darksky.org. And there is something called the Sky Quality Meter. It's $138. It's at unihedron.com. And there are also two apps. One's called Dark Sky Meter app, and the other one's called Loss of the Night. And both of these are on the previous website, which is the International Dark Sky Organization. And there are citizen science sites, My Sky at Night project, that you can upload the results of your app to. And if enough people do it, like anything in citizen science, you can get a really robust data set. And so I really wanted to encourage the public to look into these, especially in those areas that come up all the time in our discussions, where we're really trying to preserve our dark skies. And finally, for the sky quality meter, I mean, $138, that's a really reasonable price for, I think, staff to look into purchasing. And yeah, that was at unihedron.com.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. I've got some thoughts on it. I know staff is burdened with a lot of things, but I'm having a real hard time with this one because we have stipulated that we're going to enforce this, but we aren't enforcing it, or we're not doing a very good job, is what I will say. I know that there are constraints. The director said at the last meeting when we started to have this conversation that they're looking into the technology to do it, and I'm going to tell you, you don't need much technology. You need a vehicle and a person, and just take a drive out in any one of these watersheds, and you will see it. And I don't want to, I'm not going after the director, but I've been showing him and talking to him about repeated seeing it at the same places 4 to 6 times, I would say. I've talked to you about it probably over about 4 months, given the locations, everything, and nothing changes. That tells me either it's not getting to the code enforcement people, or there's not a will to go and police this, and I believe it's the latter more than the first. I'm sorry that if that upsets you, but I'm just being honest. The reason I say that is I also see the county, if they have a will to go after something, go and do it. And I don't feel like this is getting the concern that it should. I really didn't buy into this until I started doing a little bit of research on it and reading and what it does, and listening to some of the people at Fish and Game and such. Okay, I kind of thought it was, well, that's just a stretch. They're talking about that could affect things that, but I guess it's the real deal. So my problem is if we're going to approve projects and they're supposed to meet criteria, then I guess we need to be able to enforce that criteria, whatever it is. We could have the same discussion about roads, about wells, about whatever. I think we're getting to the point where we've got to say, if we can't enforce it, then can we approve it? And that's maybe a bigger issue. I mean, we've kind of tried to tackle that. We sent a letter to the supervisors and basically got told to just keep the course we're on. Okay, that's fine. But at some point, if we're going to require these things, we've got to do what we're saying we're going to do. What can we do to help you, Director? Is it another letter to the supervisors? I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore. I mean, I have been trying to bark up this tree along with the roads, and I just feel like I'm running up against the wall.
Ultimately, I'm responsible for it. I haven't been successful at doing it, so I would recommend you send a letter to the Board of Supervisors recommending that there is no confidence in the director and that the department needs to be changed.
Well, I have a lot of confidence in the director. I don't feel that way. And
I listen to it every week, Alan. I listen to it every single week.
What can we do, honestly, what can we do to help to make this?
You got to give us time.
How much? We've been doing this for 6 years.
Alan, it is my highest priority. I yell at staff about this, okay? I mean, I don't know what else to do.
Well, have you looked into purchasing these sky quality meters?
Not usable in a court of law.
Chair, can I?
Go ahead, Thomas.
So I'm going to ask that we remember that the agenda item is dark sky violations, so we try to keep our comments to that. I was the Brown Act police at the school board I was on, so I'm just going to ask that.
That's fair. I was just saying the other
No, I hear
things
that. So the question I had that I wanted to ask staff is, if you get a complaint of a dark sky violation in an area, what is needed for verification of that area to enact a violation that could be up, like could hold up, as a fine or a potential revocation. And that's,
Sorry, I try to get people out. We're working on it. We're working at getting new technology to get out and see it. We can't always see them from the perspective that people see them from. I mean, I get a lot of pushback saying that, from the roads that we're able to drive on, it's not as visible. I get it. I've seen the technology about the darksky.org. I've seen that. I know that's there. I'm as frustrated about this as you are. Maybe a lot more.
through the chair, can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So what I was trying to get at is these different apps, but you have to be able to verify it's the APN that the said violation is on. Otherwise, it would be unfair punishment, correct or incorrect?
Somebody that's come in and complained recently this week sent me like 5 photos. Clearly, greenhouses blowing the night sky up. Can you tell me where these are? No. Can you give me an address, even a road? Even take and stand on a point, put a point on a map and show me the direction that you're looking in so we can figure it out. I mean, there just has to be something to give us the ability to trace it back to a location.
Thank you.
The apps do trace to a location, and that would at least give you, right, but it would give you the information you need to narrow down where you're going to go and look on a weekly basis. And then I remember that last time this got brought up, Chair Bongio had a really good suggestion regarding calling up some of the other utility companies and forestry companies and looking into some of that information sharing. And I think you were going to follow up on that, as well as some of the, other options that are out there for monitoring.
Go ahead, Brian.
Was actually a question, have you had a chance to do that?
We don't have access to utility records. Okay, we have been coordinating with law enforcement to give us images when they do night flights, to give us GPS locations, and we have identified, the last flight we got notification of, we identified 10 sites. So it's not like we're not working at it. It is a prevalent problem.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, we've really heard a lot of different suggestions tonight, and we haven't given the director an opportunity to absorb them all and kind of let that marinate and see if he comes up with some obvious alternatives to what he's been doing. So I think he said time is the magic word, and I'm willing to give him time. We've told him how we feel.
Thomas, go ahead.
So, in that realm too, I do want to state that the original environmental document, the whole regulation came because everything was blown out of proportions. The night sky was horrible. In 2016, 2015, it was horrible. I'm going to say it's way, way better. There's a lot of places that were completely glowing up like there was a city that aren't there anymore. So if we're looking at impacts and improving, that takes time, I believe. You're looking for growth. So I would hope that eventually that, that's it's industry standard, like people are telling other people in the industry, like, hey, that's not okay, that's not good for the environment. But let's think about how bad it was. Think about what the stories, or if that night sky thing worked way back in 2015, 2016, because, oh my gosh, it has gotten so much better. So I think instead of saying it has to be perfect and complete right now, we're coming from years of, not years, decades and generations of unregulation. And now we've set a standard, and a lot of people are meeting that standard. And I think eventually it's going to get to a point where people are like, hey, educating other people in the industry, because they don't want that name. a lot of people I talk to want Humboldt County to be the higher standard place, you know, and I don't know. It's gotten better. Like when I think full circle, it's gotten a lot better.
Could it start with maybe education? I don't know if people even realize they have a problem. I don't know that industry. If they don't care, you know, like he said, if now that there's regulations, you know, people have to follow. It's gotten better, but maybe more community education or awareness of the situation, so that people say, "Well, gee, maybe I better try harder." I don't know.
Well, last time the director did let us know that they had sent a letter to everybody, I believe, and that was fairly recently, so that was really encouraging. Likewise, you know, I'm happy to hear that there's more coordination for the over sky monitoring with other groups. And again, I just want to remind the public that those apps are out there, and you know, we do have, unfortunately, still complaint-based system to a degree. And so if more people started using those, they are locationally linked, then that would be a help, I believe, to the department as well, in, you know, in terms of figuring out where to go.
That could be part of, when I say community education, I'm talking about maybe an article of interest on that might mention this organization and these types of apps, just so people know that it's out there and that it's being looked at and discussed, and that there's, you know, that might make somebody want to go buy one of those and start, you know, using it.
Yeah, I love that idea. That would be great if you could send another letter that would go into maybe some of the effects and some of the apps. And
I'm not thinking of a letter, I'm thinking more of just an, you know, North Coast Journal article or something, you know, that someone might write on the subject, maybe not even coming from the county.
Like
Thomas, go
some
ahead.
commissioner.
So the other part I've heard from people within the community is, yes, they can say, hey, I know exactly where it is, I know the problem, but the problem with that vantage point is if that vantage point was utilized, then it would be a red flag to exactly who it was, and there's been physical and all kinds of other threats that have been made out there in the world. So that's the problem. So I support, you know, giving the county time to get access to being able to take other vantage point pictures.
If I could, Chair.
Go ahead.
I think Mr. Moore is going to take issue with this, but we are taking a policy forward to the board for use of drones relative to identifying night skies violations. And so, I mean, the problem is we need to get up and be able to look down and see where the violations are at from a known point that we can then trace the sites to, that we know what they are, that we have proof of where they are. That is.
That's great news.
I was going to suggest that you maybe talk with some of our other locals that have resources, say the Coast Guard, and do some flights with them if you could get somebody on board. I at one point was going to put together a flight.
We have asked.
Well, I know the county has resources to use aircrafts with other counties. I mean, there's resources out there. Okay, I don't want to, it just seems like I'm just going after you. I can see the look. I don't want to have a fight with you, John. I'm just, what can we do to help to make this go forward? Do you want another letter from the, you know, I think you're a great director, and
I've
I'd
asked
say
for
the
some time,
best.
Alan. That's
Okay.
all I've asked for. It's like, let us implement what we're working towards. We've been working on it all year. This is the highest priority for code enforcement right now.
Okay. Can you at least keep us updated then? And you said you needed location, so if somebody was to give you a GPS location, an exact location, that would help you.
That's
or an
evidence.
AP number,
Yep.
or
Yep.
a.
Yep.
Got it. Anything else? We need to open this up for public comment, and looks like there's at least one. So go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Hello?
Yes, welcome.
Okay. Well, a lot of this has already been established. What I would like to suggest is that while the drone-based system that Mr. Ford is talking about is a valuable and important role in documenting suspected infractions in response to complaints, I worry that it's not able to monitor large areas, and complaint-driven visits already don't seem to be working. And I want to urge the county to consider two alternative approaches. The first is satellite imagery, which can document night lights, probably can detect heat signatures of large generators, and might also be able to quantify water use in local areas. The problem is that while these are technologically feasible, there are few, if any, existing companies providing relevant image acquisition and processing. Planet Labs in San Francisco, with whom Humboldt County already works, doesn't have such a satellite because the market isn't perceived as large enough. The thing is, Humboldt County is not alone in this. Most of Northern California, Southern Oregon, probably Colorado and Oklahoma and more states every year are in the same boat. California Department of Fish and Wildlife is another interested party, as might be CAL FIRE. My kids wrestled for Arcata High and had a slogan, "Go big or go home." Please consider reaching out to your opposite numbers in other counties, states, and agencies, seeing if together you can't put a proposal to convince Planet Labs to develop an appropriate platform and product. It'll take years, but the problem isn't going away. The second alternative builds on a suggestion that came up tonight with the sky quality meters. It's to go small. Light and noise meters, either recording or web interface, are inexpensive and routinely used in ecological research. Why not require, as a condition of permit, that a recording unit be installed on site? There are lots of details regarding which meters to use and how to install them so as to prevent tampering, but these are solvable. I'm guessing that the cost would be kept under $500 per unit total, low enough to make applicants responsible for payment, perhaps offset by a break on taxes or something like that. With multiple counties and thousands of grows involved, finding someone to assemble and market such units shouldn't be too hard. And I just hope you consider these ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Public 7108. 7108. Thanks, Mike.
Good evening. This is Bonnie Blackberry. First, I want to say I live at about 2,800 feet, and I have a vast view clear out to the Kings Range. And in my estimation, things are not way, way better. They're worse. Secondly, this idea about drones. In the past, when that's brought up, there's been widespread opposition to using drones for surveillance, and it's pretty much come down to that the community accepts drones for emergency use, not for general surveillance. So I think there could be a lot of opposition and problems with that. The bottom line is, what happens when somebody is found to be in violation? Is there any consequence? Has anybody ever got a fine or a penalty for not covering up the greenhouses? I think as long as it's no problem, it's going to be a problem. And so I would say you need some really serious enforcement, not like, oh, gee, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Okay, well, let's just slide on it. And, oh, darn, I forgot to do it. There needs to be some consequence. And I think if people knew there was a real consequence and you told them what it was, that would be more into getting people to do it. And I agree with Chair Bongio that handing out all these permits that you can't enforce conditions of those permits is a big problem. And it's a big problem with this night sky stuff. It's a big problem with trucking water. I don't think the county is doing anything, or the code enforcement or planning department about that either. So for the night sky, have some real consequences, not just warning. Thanks.
Thank you, Bonnie. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment. Bring it back to the commission. It was only for discussion, so there's no. Go ahead, Thomas.
Just a response to one of the public comments. I might have misheard, but they were recommending infrared, but maybe I misheard what they were talking about because they talked about heat signatures from generators, and I would just ask anyone to talk to the sheriff and ask if that's constitutional or not to utilize any type of infrared. That's it.
Can't talk to the sheriff about cannabis.
It was satellite, which is something we had requested before, and, you know, we were told that it would be too cost prohibitive. But I did like the idea of trying to work, you know, with other counties even to try to get something going up here in our region. And I also like the idea of having one of these very cost-friendly sky quality meters being installed, and, you know, maybe as a condition, and once we approve a permit.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Brian.
I'd like to move to adjourn, please.
I'll second that motion.
All right. So we have motion second, roll call vote.
I didn't think you were serious. Sorry about that. You got me flat-footed.
At least you're still in your seat.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries unanimous.
No, dude, that's totally cool. That's totally cool.
Good night, everyone.
Mind blown. Are we off soon? Shit. Sorry.